Chapter 1204. There's one more thing. Although there's no time limit in the Venerable Realm, and you can stay in there for as long as you want, I'm sure you've heard that there was once a person who tried for a few years but was unable to break through. However, he was unwilling to give up, and in the end, he was tortured into a lunatic. Not only did he lose hope of breaking through, he was even killed by the ferocious beasts. Zhou Wanxian's tone changed again. Xiaofan rubbed his nose, turned his head and whispered to Cheng Menjing, "Did you realize that this Zhou Wanxian's speech is full of emotions? Those who don't know him might think he's a late-night radio host." "What do you know? How is this a radio host?" "This is the host who tells stories, Xiao Gang." Cheng Menjing rolled her eyes at Xiaofan, and said emotionally, "Hello everyone, welcome to the Chengji breakfast shop sponsored and broadcasted." Before she could finish, Tian Souring also moved closer. "Sister Menjing, what are you talking about? Where's the Chengji breakfast shop? Sister Souring is hungry and wants to go eat." "Ahem, nothing." Cheng Menjing finally realized what she had said. Her face instantly turned red, and she stared angrily at Xiaofan. Xiaofan spread his hands innocently. "Why is it my fault again? I'm being wronged." The disciples below the stage all had a look of disapproval, because what Zhou Wanxian had said was something that had happened many years ago. Nowadays, many sects had gone through many trials in the Venerable Realm, and had already grasped a certain cultivation pattern. Only those who did not know the situation, and had weak willpower, would go crazy for no reason. As for the so-called ferocious beasts, they were not even worth mentioning. Since everyone had formed teams with their sects, they would definitely form teams to search for treasures. Even if they encountered a ferocious beast, they would definitely be able to fight it. Even if they could not kill it, they would definitely be able to escape unscathed. If they were lucky, they might even be able to earn a fortune. The thoughts of the disciples naturally did not escape the eyes of the president on the stage. Zhou Wanxian smiled faintly, a hint of disdain flashing in his eyes, and said slowly, "Those of you who have such thoughts, feel free to stay in there and try. However, don't blame me for not warning you beforehand. The Venerable Realm will produce 5 elements calamity at random times, and in random areas. Those who are tired of living, or think that they are lucky enough to withstand all 5 elements calamity, can stay and experience it." 5 elements calamity? Everyone had never heard of this term. For a moment, they were a little confused. They looked at each other in confusion. As the name suggests, the 5 elements tribulation occurs in a certain area of the Venerable's secret realm. There will be natural disasters such as hailstorms, lightning strikes, fissures, and gales. Of course, I'm sure you've all experienced these disasters in the inner martial world, or perhaps you've heard about them from your seniors in your sections. However, compared to the Venerable's secret realm, the natural disasters in the inner martial world are nothing. Zhou Wanxian explained proudly, feeling that he was at the top of everyone's IQ. The originally nonchalant crowd was shocked at this moment, and all of them fell silent. Recalling that most of the seniors in the sect had died after encountering the 5 elements tribulation, and the few who were lucky enough to survive, when they described the scene that was like hell on earth, their eyes exuded an indescribable sense of fear. The wishful thinking that had sprouted in the hearts of the disciples under the platform suddenly vanished. So that was the 5 elements calamity. Many of them thought to themselves, "The Venerable Realm is so dangerous, it is indeed not a place to play tricks. Once I have successfully broken through, I'd better hurry up and come out, lest I lose my life in there." Alright, that's all I have to say. Now, all the sects and clans can line up and draw lots to enter the Venerable secret realm according to the order. After saying this, Zhou Wanxian did not stay any longer. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from the stage without a trace. After that, many staff members of the Venerable Realm Alliance walked out from behind the stage. They checked the names of all the participants, and collected the corresponding spiritual jades. After each sect paid the spiritual jades, someone would carry a big box for them to draw lots. The Jia family had drawn the third last lot, and the Six Directions sect happened to be in front of them. The Tang family followed them into the secret realm, and the Open Heaven sect, the leader of the demon sect, was the last to enter. Ha ha ha. Xiao Chen, are you stupid? As a venerable expert, why are you following us into the secret realm? Xiao Chen was waiting in line to enter the secret plane out of boredom. Suddenly, an arrogant voice came from behind him. Furthermore, it sounded rather familiar. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes, turned around, and stared at that person as if he was looking at an idiot, and said coldly, "Tang Qianling, are you itching for a beating? It seems that the injuries from my beating have recovered. Do you feel nostalgic? Do you want to do it again? I guarantee that you will not be able to enter the venerable realm this time. Oh, I don't believe that you would dare to beat me up in public." Tang Qianling laughed coldly. "Let's not talk about the experts from the Venerable Realm Alliance, even my grandfather can, ouch." Before Tang Qianling could finish his sentence, he felt a slap on the right side of his face. He spun a few times on the spot, swayed for a while, and finally stood up with great difficulty. "Oh yes, Tang Qianling, what did you say just now? What does your grandfather want to do? Is he going to treat me to a meal?" Xiao Chen dusted off his hands as if he was dusting off dust, looked at the sky, and whistled as if it had nothing to do with him. "You." Tang Qianling felt a burning pain on his right cheek. He looked around and saw that the Venerable Realm Alliance staff were busy counting people, and did not seem to have noticed what had happened. Tang Qianling could not do anything to Xiao Chen, and could only point at his nose, and said fiercely, "Just you wait, Xiao Chen. Once we enter the Venerable Realm, even if you have the ability to go to heaven or hell, you will be beaten up by us, not to mention a venerable expert. Sigh, looks like you have been beaten up silly by me, haven't you? You can't do anything to me outside. Don't tell me you'll be able to cheat inside?" Xiao Chen shrugged and sighed helplessly. Although Xiao Chen was being sarcastic, he still looked into the distance cautiously. As expected, he immediately noticed something amiss. The venerable experts from the Tang clan, Yu clan, and the other clans did not follow the group into the Venerable Realm. Instead, they turned around and returned to the inn at the pier. What was going on? Could it be that the experts of these clans and sects were not worried that their disciples would be killed inside? Chapter 1205. Although the seclusion site provided protection measures, these weaklings were likely to be killed by others before they reached the seclusion site. Xiao Chen could even imagine that there were only so many seclusion sites. If they wanted to snatch these places, it would definitely be a bloodbath. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen was too lazy to care about Tang Qianling. Instead, he turned to Jia Muzin and asked, "Muzin, why did the venerable masters who led the teams go back? Do they have other ways to enter the venerable secret realm without spending spiritual jades?" "Huh? Oh, them." Jia Muzin looked up and said casually, "They won't enter the secret realm. They are waiting for their disciples and clansmen to return at the inn outside." "Why? What if some of the venerable masters of the clans go in and kill the martial kings and demon kings in order to seize the seclusion site for their clansmen?" Xiao Chen asked in surprise. Jia Muzin was startled. Suddenly, he slapped his forehead and quickly explained, "Oh. I forgot to tell you that after entering the venerable secret realm, everyone's strength will be suppressed to the realm of the martial king Great Perfection and the demon king Great Perfection. Although they have the power of the venerable in their bodies, when they activate their martial qi and demonic qi, they will be suppressed to the realm of the king. The purpose is to prevent the situation you just mentioned from happening. If those venerable masters destroy the balance and kill the disciples of other clans and sects to hinder their advancement, the situation will be out of control." "Oh, so that's how it is. I was wondering why Tang Qianling was so proud." Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. So be it. After all, he was a cultivator. Who knew if this lousy secret realm would be able to see through his true strength? Besides, even if I am also suppressed to the realm of the Demon King Great Perfection, I have enough ability to kill them. Moreover, I have the help of the fire of the underworld and little demonin. If it really doesn't work, I can let the Elder Heaven Ancestor possess me. I have so many tricks up my sleeves. Why should I be afraid of a few insignificant people? Xiao Chen, although we all know that you are very powerful, I think we should be more careful when we go in. Jia Muzhen was not as optimistic as Xiao Chen. He lowered his voice and said, even if Cheng Menjing and I have successfully advanced to the Venerable Realm, our strength will still be stuck at the peak Martial King Realm and the peak Demon King Realm. If any of our enemies target us and take the opportunity to attack us, we may not be able to escape every time. Moreover, the Mystery Land itself is full of dangers. Recalling Chou Wanqian's description of the calamity of 5 elements, Jia Muzhen still felt a lingering fear. After entering the Venerable Realm, other than avoiding the schemes of others, he also had to be on guard against the calamity of 5 elements. It was not a safe place at all. In fact, Jia Muzhen was not willing to let Xiao Chen take the risk. He was worried that he would be impulsive and have an accident. However, considering that Cheng Menjing and the others were going together, Xiao Chen would definitely be worried. So, Jia Muzhen did not say his inner thoughts in the end. He, Xiao Chen, now you know how powerful it is, right? Tang Qianling stood far away and saw Xiao Chen and Jia Muzhen whispering, so he immediately laughed loudly. Tang Qianling did not dare to approach Xiao Chen again, lest he would be beaten again. He just sneered from afar, what a pity. Now that you have handed over the spiritual jade and registered your name, it is too late to regret it. Otherwise, the people of the Mystery Land Alliance will think that you are playing with them and will take you down. What's the point of saying so much nonsense? This young master is a nouveau riche and doesn't lack anything in my hands, much less spiritual jades. I'm more than happy to tour the place. Later on, I'll bring my pet dog over and let it cultivate there as well. When the time comes, the invincible venerable dog will come out and let the dog bite a fool like you to death. Xiao Chen laughed coldly and said without a care in the world. Ha ha ha. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Tang Qianling's group immediately laughed unscrupulously. They all felt that Xiao Chen must have been scared out of his wits. He actually started spouting nonsense. Let a pet dog become a venerable? Only an idiot from the secular world like Xiao Chen could say such brainless words. Among them, Tang Qianling laughed the loudest. From his point of view, Xiao Chen was not far from death. As long as they entered the Venerable Realm, Xiao Chen's cultivation would be suppressed. In addition, Tang Qianling had already made the necessary arrangements. No matter how powerful this kid was, he would not be able to withstand the attacks of so many martial kings and demon kings at the same time. Xiao Chen, even if you are the monkey son, you will not be able to escape from the 5-finger mountain of the big sects and families. By the way, Xiao Chen, if you did not mention it, I would have almost forgotten about it. Cheng Menjing's expression suddenly changed. She pulled Xiao Chen and said anxiously, our universe invincible dog is still in the pet shop. I don't know how it is now. We have not returned for so long. Will the shop owner mistreat it? Cheng Menjing now regretted leaving in such a hurry that she did not bring the invincible dog with her. Although the invincible dog did not seem to be a special breed and its bloodline was not pure, it was a very smart dog. It was such a waste to leave it in the pet shop. Yes. Sister Sour has seen that dog before. It's quite cute, and it's very human-like. No matter what order Sister Sour gives it, it will follow. Tian Sour said excitedly, what's its name again? The Universe Invincible Super Dog? Wrong. It is the Universe Invincible Super Dog, not the Invincible Super Dog. Cheng Menjing waved her hand, then went into a daze. She muttered to herself, why do I feel like this scene is a little familiar? Don't worry, I have already asked Ling Qianyu and Su Chuxia to bring the invincible dog away. Xiaochen knew that Cheng Menjing was recalling the happy times they had in the villa. He smiled and said, "The invincible dog should be in their dormitory now. Nothing will happen to it." In fact, Xiaochen only remembered about the invincible dog 2 or 3 days after leaving Lan City. He quickly called Ling Qianyu and asked her to bring the dog back and keep it by her side. Cheng Menjing heaved a sigh of relief. She was indebted to Invincible Dog, and it was her first pet. Although it wasn't pretty, it was smart. She didn't want to give it up so easily. As the queue continued to move forward, it was finally the Jia family's turn to enter the teleportation portal. However, this portal could only teleport one person at a time. They had to enter one by one according to the order. The other clans and sects would enter according to seniority. The Jia clan did not have so many unnecessary formalities. Xiaochen was the closest to them, so he planned to enter first. This way, he could explore the way first. Then, he would wait for the others inside. Of course, the remaining people did not have any objections. Chapter 1206. After stepping into the transmitting formation, Xiaochen only felt a white light flashed before his eyes. Then, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed, and the environment immediately changed. Before Xiaochen could take a closer look, a few whooshes sounded behind him. The people of the Jia family, Cheng Menjing, and the other girls also came in. Seeing this extremely strange environment, they were a bit confused and didn't know where to go. Fortunately, they were all teleported together, so they could take care of each other. Xiaochen looked around and realized that this was an extremely vast and empty land. Furthermore, it was shrouded in a faint mist, and the sunlight couldn't be seen clearly. He could only vaguely make out the situation a dozen or so meters away, as well as the vague outlines of mountains and forests in the distance. This scene was very similar to the foggy forest that Xiaochen passed through when he walked from the outer martial arts world to the inner martial arts world. The difference was that the fog in this secret realm was slightly lighter, but it was still impossible to see the whole picture at a glance. Even though they were standing at a commanding position, they still couldn't find it for a while. Xiaochen quietly spread out his divine awareness and led the group to a big tree not far away. After standing still, he carefully observed the places that he could reach with his divine awareness, and judged where to go next. Jia Muzan and the others didn't say anything. Looking at Xiaochen with his eyes closed, they waited quietly. Now, they unconsciously followed Xiaochen's lead, and vaguely regarded him as their leader. "I have a general direction." After a while, Xiaochen opened his eyes, pointed to the north, and said, "Let's go north for the time being. There are more closed-door training points there." So far, only 2 or 3 groups of people have gone there, and they haven't found anything strange yet. Just now, Xiaochen had explored as far as he could in the 4 directions as possible. Many groups had gone to the west and south. Although there weren't many groups in the east, ferocious beasts appeared from time to time, and the degree of danger was relatively high. Therefore, Xiaochen judged that the north was relatively safer. Hardly had Xiaochen finished his words when a person suddenly walked out of the group and walked in another direction alone. "Jia Tuyao. Where are you going?" Jia Muzan jumped in fright and hurriedly shouted, "Xiaochen already said that he's going north. Are you going to die by going south alone?" The one who left was Jia Tuyao. Without even turning his head around, he said, "If you want to follow Xiaochen, then go ahead. He has offended so many people outside. Now, there must be people waiting for an opportunity to take revenge on him. I don't want to follow him. When the time comes, I will suffer an unexpected disaster." After saying that, Jia Tuyao walked further and further away. Soon, he disappeared in the mist, leaving no trace behind. "You!" Jia Muzan was furious. Just as he was about to rush forward and flip out, he was stopped by Xiaochen. "Forget it, Mu Senator. If that idiot wants to leave by himself, then let him be. Anyway, his death has nothing to do with us." We don't want another piece of trash to drag us down. Xiaochen coldly glanced at the direction where Jia Tuyao left, then turned around and said, "All right, let's go now, or we might not even be able to get the rest of the closed-door cultivation sites." Jia Muzin hesitated for a while, then reluctantly nodded. Although he also hated Jia Tuyao, after all, they were all members of the Jia family. Now that he was the young master of the Jia family, since he had brought Jia Tuyao into the secret realm, he had to shoulder the responsibility of the young master and take everyone out together. He didn't expect that Jia Tuyao would be so vengeful. As soon as he entered the secret realm, he left the team and acted alone. For the sake of the big picture, Jia Muzin couldn't leave the whole team to chase after him. Therefore, he could only let him go. When the team was about to leave, Miss Xing suddenly stopped and said to Xiaochen, "Xiaochen, I can't go with you. Elder Son sent me a message, asking me to wait for him near the teleportation site. I guess he has an important task for me." "Oh, okay. Then take care of yourself." Xiaochen nodded and lightly patted Miss Xing's shoulder. Miss Xing had mentioned this to him before. Xiaochen could also guess that Elder Son, that old bastard, would definitely not let this matter go. "Xing Gongzi, actually, you don't have to go." Tian Sauer interrupted and said, "Since you are going to shed all pretense of cordiality with those people from Open Heaven sect sooner or later, why don't you take this opportunity to completely cut off your relationship with them?" Just like Sister Sauer, she left just like that and didn't return for more than 10 years. Now, she has directly cut off all contact with us. That's not very good. I think it's better for me to go. Miss Xing thought for a while, then shook her head and said with a smile, "Maybe they will think of other ways to frame Xiaochen. When that time comes, I will be by their side and know some inside information. I can also warn you in advance." Miss Xing didn't want to go back because she couldn't bear to leave Open Heaven sect. She had long disliked the actions of her own sect. However, since her identity hadn't been exposed yet, Miss Xing wanted to use this as a cover for Xiaochen and inquire about relevant information. That's fine too. Xiaochen didn't object, but he still warned her with a serious expression, "However, I feel that the person with the surname Sun may already be suspicious of you. If he interrogates you, you don't have to deliberately cover for me. Just tell him the truth. Say that I brought people north and leave the rest to me." This isn't appropriate, right? You guys have to be busy breaking through to the Venerable Realm and deal with the people from Open Heaven sect. I'm afraid you won't have the time to be distracted. Miss Xing frowned and said disapprovingly. "Hehe, have you forgotten what Chou Wanxian said previously? Even if the people with the surname Sun find us, we will definitely be safe and sound." Xiaochen smiled slightly. He wasn't worried at all about what Miss Xing said happening. Miss Xing was startled. She tried hard to recall what the leader of the alliance had just said. Soon, she understood what Xiaochen meant. Chou Wanxian said that there were protective measures at the seclusion site. It could allow people who were focused on breaking through to not be affected by the outside world. It was probably because of this that Xiaochen felt at ease and dared to let her speak the truth. "But, what if you guys didn't find the seclusion site, or it has already been occupied by others?" Miss Xing asked worriedly. "You don't have to worry about this. If the people from Open Heaven sect really dare to come, I have the confidence to make them stay here." The corner of Xiaochen's mouth curled up, revealing a trace of a smile. The reason why Xiaochen dared to say this was naturally not because he was speaking without thinking. He had just discovered a little secret. Even if the flame of the underworld and an little demon didn't make a move, he could easily and happily take care of Elder Sun and the others. Seeing that Xiaochen was so confident, Miss Xing didn't say anything else and nodded. Chapter 1207. At this moment, a few white lights flashed from the teleportation array not far away. She guessed that Elder Sun and the others had arrived, so she bid farewell to Xiaochen and the others and walked towards the teleportation array. Xiao Chen brought Jia Muzhen, Jia Renzhong, Cheng Menjiang, and the others and hurriedly left towards the north. This wasn't Elder Sun's first time coming to the Venerable Realm, so he was very familiar with the environment here. He was the first to enter the teleportation array and then waited at the side. After all the disciples of the awakening sect had arrived, he began to make arrangements. "Little Xing, you're here." Elder Sun had just finished making arrangements when he saw Little Xing walking towards him. "Yes, I parted ways with them." Little Miss Xing nodded her head and casually replied. Elder Sun sized up Little Xing out of caution. He still asked her a few questions to test if she was being controlled. After all, after entering the secret realm, not only would they make a move, but Xiao Chen might also want to retaliate. Seeing that Little Xing answered all the questions fluently, Elder Sun dispelled the doubts in his heart. He then asked, "You came in with Xiao Chen and the others, right? Did you notice any abnormalities after entering the Venerable Realm?" "There weren't any abnormalities. It's just that after Xiao Chen's strength dropped to the Demon King Great Perfection Realm, he became much more vigilant." Little Xing pretended to think first before answering. "If that's the case, then which direction did Xiao Chen and the others go?" Elder Sun glanced at her and asked. "They went north." Xing Las didn't hesitate this time and directly said it. "Heading north? Why would they go in that direction? Are you sure you didn't see wrongly?" Elder Sun pondered for a moment. He seemed to be a little dissatisfied with the direction Xiao Chen went, but he didn't directly say the reason. No." Little Xing was stunned and shook her head in surprise. She thought to herself, "Why am I being suspected even though I told the truth?" Elder Sun, young Master Xing did not see wrongly. "I also heard Xiao Chen's group heading in that direction." Just as Xing Las finished speaking, a familiar voice rang out. Following that, two men broke through the fog and slowly walked over. Lady Xing turned around and saw the two men's faces. She broke out in a cold sweat. Luckily, she didn't try to trick Elder Sunday, otherwise, she would have been exposed in front of everyone. "Tu Yao, you go with Elder Sun and the others. I have other things to do." The two people who came over were Jia Yuto and Jia Tuyao. It was Jia Tuyao who said those words just now, and at this moment, Jia Yuto was whispering to his son. It turned out that what Jia Tuyao said about Xiao Chen being hunted down was just an excuse. After Jia Tuyao had walked far away, he sneaked back to an inconspicuous corner and waited for the people from Open Heaven sect to come in. As for Jia Yuto, he waited for Xiao Chen and the others to enter the secret realm, then he sneaked into the Awakening Heaven sect's group, paid the spiritual jades, and entered the secret realm. After entering the secret realm, he ran to the previously agreed place and picked up Jia Tuyao. Ever since Jia Yubian's death, Jia Huiyan, who knew nothing about the inside story and couldn't afford to help him, also fell from power. Jia Huiyan had been lying on the sickbed all day, struggling at death's door. Elder Sun had no choice but to secretly look for Jia Yubian to cooperate with him, hoping to continue the cooperation with Jia Yubian. Of course, Jia Yuto was very willing to cooperate with Open Heaven sect. Although he wanted to fight for the control of the Jia family, he had never found a suitable opportunity. In the past, Jia Yubian controlled the lifeline of the Jia family and firmly suppressed him. Even though Jia Yuto was responsible for external contacts and had a wide network of contacts, he had no chance to stand out. Now that Jia Yubian was dead, the young patriarch had become the foolish and slow-witted Jia Muzhen in Jia Yuto's eyes. Now that the Awakening Heaven sect had extended an olive branch to them, Jia Yuto naturally didn't hesitate to bring his son to join them. Although Jia Tuyao was not the heir of the Jia family, as long as he had the support of Open Heaven sect, in the future, wouldn't it be a matter of time for him to take back the power of the Jia family? This time, after entering the Venerable secret territory, Jia Yuto planned to help his son ascend to the position of Venerable. In this way, when he returned to the Jia family, he would naturally be able to stand tall and have nothing to fear. If that's the case, then forget it. Elder Sun finally believed what little girl Xing had said. He raised his head to look at the sky and said, "It's getting late, we have to set off as soon as possible. First, we have to meet with the people of Open Heaven sect in the Venerable Secret Territory, and then we will go and find trouble with Xiaofan." At this time, Jia Tuyao had already walked into the group of Open Heaven sect. Hearing Elder Sun's words, he immediately said respectfully, with Elder Sun's perfect plan, this time, even if Xiaofan grew wings, he would not be able to escape. Elder Sun chuckled, waved his hand, and led Jia Tuyao and the group of disciples towards the northeast, leaving only Jia Yudo standing there motionlessly. Young Lady Xing slowly walked at the back of the group. She wanted to see what Jia Yu wanted to do by staying here. However, under Elder Sun's repeated urging, she could only gloomily quicken her pace to catch up to Jia Yu. But before she could go far, from the corner of her eyes, she suddenly saw a few flashes of white light from the teleportation formation behind her. Little girl Xing was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously turned around to look at the teleportation formation. She was puzzled. Open Heaven sect should be the last group to enter the Venerable Secret Territory, right? Why are there still people coming in from the back? Little Xing, what are you doing? Don't stand there in a daze, hurry up and catch up with the group. The visibility here is very low, if we get separated, it will be troublesome. Elder Sun turned around and saw that little girl Xing was standing there motionlessly, so he shouted loudly. "Okay. I'm coming." Little girl Xing nodded hurriedly, and didn't dare to stay any longer. She hurriedly took 2 steps forward and caught up with Elder Sun and the group. When the last ray of white light flashed in the Venerable Secret Realm, Xiaofan was leading the group forward slowly in the fog. Although Xiaofan could rely on his powerful divine sense and mental strength to see far into the distance, the terrain of the Venerable Secret Territory was as complicated as a maze. The terrain in the Venerable Secret Territory was as complex as a maze. Apart from that, there were also some hidden fatal traps along the way. Presumably, they were set up by the people who entered the secret territory earlier. Their purpose was to frame other cultivators, so that they wouldn't be able to find the seclusion point. Xiaofan didn't walk very fast, because Jia Muzhen, Cheng Menjiang, and the other girls' cultivation levels weren't very high. If they were suddenly attacked, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to protect them in time, and some of them would lose their lives. Therefore, he was especially careful. Apart from guarding against the sneak attacks of wild beasts, he was also constantly observing to see if there were people from other sects nearby. Chapter 1208. Along the way, Xiaofan and the rest passed by a few seclusion spots. However, outside the seclusion spots, the disciples from the other sects who had been teleported in earlier were already fighting fiercely, causing dust to fly everywhere. The battle was extremely intense. After all, no one wanted to take unnecessary risks. Since they could find a suitable seclusion spot nearby, no one was willing to search elsewhere. Who knew if something terrifying would suddenly appear along the way? Xiaofan casually glanced at the crowd that was fighting and attracted all sorts of vigilant gazes. He shook his head and continued to lead the group forward. There are so many people here. Even if we go and snatch, we probably won't be able to get many. Instead, it'll be a waste of energy. Why don't we walk a little further and take a look? As Xiaofan walked, he explained to the people behind him, if we can find a seclusion spot further away, even if it's not completely empty, I reckon the competition won't be so intense. We still have a chance to snatch it. Of course, the others did not have any objections. They obediently followed Xiaofan and explored further away. Although everyone knew very well that the exploration process was somewhat risky, it was much better than the chaotic situation. No one wanted to stay. All they wanted was to successfully find a seclusion spot and successfully advance to the Venerable Realm. The group explored in silence for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Although they found a few seclusion spots along the way, it was a pity that they had either been snatched by others or were abandoned and could no longer be used. Moreover, as long as they looked up, they could vaguely see a large group of people in front of them. At this rate, even if they were lucky enough to find another seclusion spot, it would definitely not be Xiao Chen and the rest's turn to pick it up. After all, there were too many wolves and not enough meat. Everyone wanted to break through to the venerable realm as soon as possible, so it was inevitable that there would be another round of fighting. Husband Xiao Chen, aren't there a little too many cultivators here? Sister Sourshu didn't seem to see so many people when we were outside. Why are there suddenly more people inside? Don't tell me they snuck in. Looking at the cluster of blurry human figures in the fog not far away, Tian Wangchuan could not help but grumble angrily. She had originally thought that it would be very easy for her to find a secluded cultivation spot after she entered. She had not expected that after searching for a long time, she could not even find a secluded cultivation spot. That's not the case. It's probably because there were a lot of people in there before. That's why it's so crowded. Xiao Chen made the correct judgment. Then what should we do? The sky is about to turn dark. If I can't find a place to go into seclusion, it will be even more difficult tomorrow. Jia Muzhen frowned slightly. Xiao Chen looked around, pointed to a small path, and said, "If we continue to walk along the main road, I think it will be difficult. How about this, let's take a small detour and try to walk along the small path. Maybe we can find something new. That way, I won't have to follow behind others and eat dust." Take the small path? Cheng Menjing looked at the dark fog and couldn't see anything clearly. She suddenly had a strange feeling in her heart, but she couldn't tell what it was. What's wrong, Menjing? Don't you want to take the small path? Xiao Chen saw that Cheng Menjing's expression was a little hesitant. He thought that she was afraid to take the small path, so he asked with concern. Cheng Menjing hesitated for a moment, but she still waved her hand and said, "Forget it. Let's do as you say. I don't want to mess with those stinky men." The others naturally did not have any objections. Since Xiao Chen was leading the team, there would definitely not be any problems. Moreover, although that small path looked a little sinister, there were indeed very few people. Who knew, they might be able to find another way and find treasures. Stepping on the muddy and rugged remote road, Xiao Chen quickly found that there were already a lot of footprints on the ground. It seemed that someone had passed by here. However, Xiao Chen didn't care and still led everyone forward. Because according to the number of footprints, he judged that there shouldn't be many people walking in this direction. After all, everyone was scared by Chou Wanqian before, and they were not willing to take risks. They tacitly agreed that it was safer to walk along the main road. Soon, Xiao Chen's proposal was fruitful. Everyone finally found an empty seclusion point. They were overjoyed and eager to try it. They all wanted to run over immediately. Wait! Just as they were getting closer and closer to the seclusion point, Xiao Chen suddenly stopped and made a silent gesture. Then, he led everyone to turn around and hide in a bush. What's wrong? What happened? Cheng Menjing hurriedly asked in a low voice. However, before she could finish her question, they heard messy footsteps approaching from different directions. Everyone's expressions tensed up. They thought that it was coming for them, and they listened attentively as if they were facing a great enemy. Only then did they determine that there should be two groups of people rushing over from two different directions, and their target was this empty closed-door cultivation spot. It seemed like they wanted to come over and fight for it. After everyone concealed themselves, they quietly raised their heads and peeked through the grass. They saw a group of people dressed in gray robes coming from the east. There were about 30 people in this group, while the group of cultivators dressed in red robes to the west only had a few dozen people. In comparison, the momentum of the group at the beginning was clearly weaker. At this moment, Ling Er's eyes suddenly lit up. She pulled on Xiao Chen's sleeve and pointed at one of the groups. "Xiao Chen, look! Those people in red robes are from our Yinyan sect. The long-haired man leading them is my senior, Feng Yulei. I also know the people in gray robes. They are from the Six Directions sect. The old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion is called Tong Yizuan. He is an elder of their sect. Ling Er's small hand clutched Xiao Chen's clothes tightly. She was a little emotional. She didn't recognize the people from the Yinyan sect when she was outside. She didn't expect to meet them here. However, she didn't dare to show herself now. After all, she had secretly followed Xiao Chen here and hadn't been recognized by the sect. In other words, the sect didn't take her seriously. Don't be too nervous. Let's see what happens first. I think these two sects are going to fight. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and patted Ling Er's small hand. It can't be. I remember that the relationship between the Yinyan sect and the Six Directions sect is quite good. Why would they fight over a secluded cultivation spot? Aren't there a lot of secluded cultivation spots here? Ling Er felt that Xiao Chen's words were a little strange. What's there to be confused about? Xiao Chen laughed coldly. He looked at the situation outside and explained in a low voice, there are indeed many secluded cultivation spots in the honorable realm. However, according to the few situations we've encountered before, even sects that were originally very close to each other would fight over secluded cultivation spots. There is no reason at all. Chapter 1209. Ling Er was dazed for a second, but she soon understood what Xiao Chen meant. In a place where strength was everything, relationships meant nothing. Whoever was stronger would get more resources. Young friend Feng, nice to meet you. I didn't expect to see you here. At this moment, the two teams had already met outside. Tong Yizuan stroked his white beard and looked at Feng Yulei with a smile. He then said calmly, "That's right. Senior Tong, I'm really sorry. This secluded training spot was discovered by us, the Guiding Cloud School. Please find another place." Feng Yulei was a straightforward man. Although he said sorry, he didn't show it on his face at all. Young friend Feng, you are wrong. This secluded training spot is so large that it is obviously more suitable for many people to train at the same time. Your Guiding Cloud School only has 12 people. It is such a waste to take up such a large amount of resources. Just give it to us, the Six Directions School. Tong Yizuan said calmly with a vicious look in his eyes. Although his words were very beautiful, Tong Yizuan's intentions were very clear. There were only 12 or so of them. Even if both sides were to fight, and everyone had the strength of a king paragon, this daddy's side had more people than you. 2 of us would be enough to take on one of you. You might as well give it up obediently and save yourself some trouble. Tong Yizuan, don't think that you are so great because you have more people. Today, I will not respect the old and cherish the young. Feng Yulei snorted and stepped into the secluded training spot first. Then he waved his hand and said to the disciples behind him, "Come with me, everyone. This spot belongs to the Guiding Cloud School. Young man, it seems that you won't give up until you see the coffin." Tong Yizuan was furious when he saw that Feng Yulei didn't take him seriously. He focused his eyes and his pupils shrank. He immediately operated his mental cultivation method and showed his cultivation. Then, he waved his palm at Feng Yulei. Feng Yulei didn't expect that Tong Yizuan would suddenly attack him. Luckily, he was young and strong, and his reaction was more agile than ordinary people. He hurried to dodge, but it was still too late. His shoulder was hit by the palm wind, and the sharp pain spread rapidly. "Tong! You old fart, you actually dare to oppose our cloud drawing sect, you are simply tired of living." Being injured, Feng Yulei was completely infuriated. He opened his mouth and cursed. Holding back the pain in his shoulder, he stomped on Tong Yizuan with his left foot and punched at his chest. "Hee hee, brat, you are still too young to fight me. Tong Yizhuan laughed. Instead of retreating, he advanced towards Feng Yulei. When Feng Yulei's fist was about to touch Tong Yizhuan's chest, Tong Yizhuan suddenly twisted his body in a weird curve. Not only did he dodge the fatal punch, he also took the opportunity to move behind Feng Yulei and slap his back brutally. Seeing that his punch had missed, Feng Yulei knew that the situation was not good. However, he had used up all his strength and had no way to resist the palm wind behind him. All he could do was grit his teeth and take it. Bang! With a muffled sound, Feng Yulei was blown away and landed heavily on the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood. "Little ant, you overestimate yourself." Tong Yizhuan put his hands behind his back and walked towards Feng Yulei slowly. He sneered condescendingly, "You think you can be so presumptuous in front of me just because you are a peak king? Get out of here. If it were not for Xiaofan, I would have killed you long ago." The two had fought so fast that the disciples of the cloud-drawing sect had just come to themselves. Seeing that their senior brother was at a disadvantage, they hurried to his side. 2 disciples helped Feng Yulei up, while the other dozen disciples surrounded Tong Yizhuan tightly. They all looked murderous, as if they were ready to fight Tong Yizhuan at any time. "Yo, you little bastards, are you tired of living just like your senior brother?" Tong Yizhuan frowned and took a step back secretly. Then, he winked at the disciples of the 6 Directions sect not far away. Although his actual combat experience was stronger than that of these little brats, he couldn't handle the sheer number of people on the other side. As the saying goes, even ants can bite an elephant to death. If the few of them were to fight him alone, even the old master would be beaten to death. Receiving Tong Yizhuan's signal, those disciples also rushed over. They automatically divided into groups of 2 and fixed their eyes on the disciples of the cloud-drawing sect. They were ready to kill them at any time. Seeing the tension in the air between the 2 sides, as though a fight was about to break out at any moment, Ling, who was watching from the bushes, immediately grew nervous. She grabbed Xiao Chen's arm tightly and said anxiously, "Xiao Chen, can you help the people from the Yinyan sect? Although sect leader Zhuo was not nice to you before, senior brother Feng and the other disciples are innocent." Ouch! Before Ling could finish her words, she suddenly felt as if her left leg had been stung by something. The pain made her lose her balance and fall to the ground. Ling, what's wrong? Xiao Chen was shocked and quickly helped Ling, up. He lowered his head and glanced at her left leg. He discovered that there was a huge ant biting her calf firmly. Moreover, there were many large ants crawling out of the mud and climbing up her calf. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook off the ants on Ling's leg and rushed out of the bushes while holding her. He shouted to the others behind him, "Everyone, come out quickly. There are many bullet ants here. There should be an ant nest nearby. Be careful not to get bitten." Everyone's faces turned pale when they heard this. They lowered their heads and looked at their feet. They saw countless huge ants crawling out of the mud. Some of the faster ones had already climbed up to their shoes. After hurriedly shaking off the ants on their shoes, everyone no longer cared about hiding themselves. They quickly followed behind Xiao Chen and ran to an open space not far away. Seeing that everyone had come out safe and sound, Xiao Chen condensed a fireball and threw it at the bushes they had just hidden in. Not long after, there was a crackling sound and the smell of burnt insects. Cheng Menjing and the other girls covered their noses. The smell was very unpleasant. "Who is it?" Since there was a fire here, the Cloud Guide sect and the 6 Directions sect naturally heard the commotion. Tong Yizhuan shouted and looked toward the bushes that were on fire. With one look, he immediately found traces of Xiao Chen and the others. He narrowed his eyes and said with a gloomy expression, "It seems that Elder Heaven Ancestors' luck is really good today. Not only did I successfully find a place for seclusion, but I can also end the feud between Elder Gu and Shi Yuchuan." Chapter 12:10. Since he had already been exposed, Xiaochen didn't plan to continue watching the show. He supported Ling and brought a group of people over to Tong Yizun. He stared at him condescendingly and said, "Old fart, this young master has taken a fancy to this seclusion spot. Hurry up and bring your bunch of rotten potatoes and stinky eggs away. Don't stand here like idiots and block the Earth's rotation." Ha ha ha. Xiaochen, your tone is really big. Although I can't do anything to you outside, you still dare to be so arrogant in the venerable realm? It seems like you haven't figured out the current situation. Tong Yizun didn't get angry when he heard Xiaochen's threat. He thought that Xiaochen didn't know that the venerable realm's strength was restricted, so he was talking nonsense. From Tong Yizun's point of view, Xiaochen and the others were nothing more than a motley crew. Apart from Xiaochen, who had the strength of a consummate martial artist and needed him to move his fingers to deal with them, the rest of them didn't even need him to lift a finger. "Oh, young miss, help me support Ling first." Xiaochen acted as if he didn't hear Tong Yizun's words. He turned around and carefully handed Ling to Cheng Menjing. "Little brat, didn't you hear what I said? Do you know what restrictions this secret realm has on venerables?" Tong Yizun was a little embarrassed when he saw that Xiaochen was ignoring him, so he immediately retorted. "What does it have to do with you whether I know or not?" Xiaochen cursed and slowly walked over to Tong Yizun. "What do you want to do? You dare to be so arrogant in front of this old man? You will pay the price." Tong Yizun saw that Xiaochen wasn't curious at all, so he was a little angry and said fiercely. Xiaochen scoffed at Tong Yizun's words. After walking in front of Tong Yizun, he first used his mental power to control Tong Yizun's body. Then he raised his hand and slapped Tong Yizun. He said coldly, "I naturally have the ability to be arrogant. Since you think you've lived enough, then you can die now. You." Tong Yizun was indifferent at first, thinking that he could easily avoid this palm, but just as he was about to use his movement technique, he suddenly found that his body couldn't move at all. Tong Yizun, who had turned pale with fright, could only watch as Xiaochen's palm grew bigger and bigger in front of his eyes. Accompanied by a blood-curdling screech, Tong Yizun was unable to resist Xiaochen's slap and was sent flying more than 10 meters away. His body drew a parabola in the air and crashed heavily onto the ground, motionless. He was already deader than dead. The disciples of the Six Harmonies faction were dumbfounded. What was going on? One had to know that as an elder of the Six Directions faction, Tong Yizun's strength was second only to the faction leader. Now, he was actually slapped to death by Xiaochen. How were they supposed to play? On the other side, the disciples of the Yin Yun sect were all stunned on the spot. They were so shocked by the scene that they couldn't speak. They all felt that Xiaochen was too outrageous. Although the palm just now looked very ordinary, Tong Yizun stood there motionlessly, unable to dodge it at all. What was going on? Feng Yulei, who was being supported by two of his junior brothers, had a very ugly expression. It wasn't because Xiaochen's strength was superior and had stolen his limelight. It was because he had seen the scene of Xiaochen hugging Ling intimately. Feng Yulei and Ling had grown up together in the sect, and he had always admired her. Now that he saw her being hugged by another man, he suddenly felt that a good cabbage had been taken by a pig. Moreover, this pig had just saved the Yin Yun sect, so he was very conflicted. For a moment, the entire scene was frighteningly quiet. Xiaochen raised his eyebrows and glared at the disciples of the Six Harmonies faction. He said impatiently, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and get lost. Don't tell me you also want to experience the feeling of that old man flying." Those disciples were so scared that their bodies trembled, and only then did they come back to their senses. After seeing Xiaochen's methods, they knew that this fiend in front of them was not joking with them. They hurriedly ran over, picked up Tong Yizun's corpse, and without saying a word, they ran away in fear. This great hero, thank you so much for saving the Yin Yun sect, which was on the brink of destruction. I don't know how to thank you. With the help of his disciples, Feng Yulei limped over to Xiaochen. He took a deep breath and cupped his fists at him respectfully. Oh, no need to thank me. It was nothing. Xiaochen waved his hand casually and said, all right, you can go now. I will reluctantly accept this closed-door training point. Consider it as a gift of appreciation. Xiaochen had seen Feng Yulei's constipated face just now. He could guess that this guy seemed to be interested in Ling Er. However, since Feng Yulei had not done anything out of line, he did not want to expose him. As long as Feng Yulei behaved himself and did not make any trouble, everything would be fine. That. The corner of Feng Yulei's mouth twitched a bit. His heart suddenly sank. He did not expect that Xiaochen would also want this closed-door training point. Feng Yulei naturally did not want to give up the closed-door training point just like that. However, he did not know how to negotiate with Xiaochen. After all, Xiaochen had killed Tong Yizhuan with one move. No. To be more precise, it was a casual slap that easily killed Tong Yizhuan. Feng Yulei was thinking quickly. He knew that he was not a match for Xiaochen, but he really did not want to give up this closed-door training point. He was thinking about how to fight for it. What are you talking about? If it wasn't for my wife Ling Er, I wouldn't even care about the life and death of your group. Xiaochen put on a serious face and said gloomily, anyway, I have made my decision. Either you disappear consciously, or I don't mind giving you a ride. Think about it carefully. Feng Yulei opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, he heard Cheng Menjing shouting from behind, Xiaochen, Ling has fainted. Come and have a look. Xiaochen frowned when he heard that. He immediately abandoned Feng Yulei and turned to run over. He bent down to take Ling Er from Cheng Menjing's hands and held her in his embrace. Then, he injected some primordial qi into her body to check on her condition. Feng Yulei was also startled. He limped over to Xiaochen. He wanted to check Ling Er's condition in person, but he felt even more uncomfortable when he saw Xiaochen hugging Ling Er so tightly. Not long after, Xiaochen's furrowed brows relaxed a lot. Ling had only fainted because she had been poisoned by the bullet ants. There was not much of a problem. After finding out the cause, Xiaochen used the pneuma to guide the poison in Ling Er's body to the wound on her calf, and then it was discharged gradually. Chapter 12:11. Xiaochen only used his primordial qi to heal the wound after the black blood had flowed out and turned into fresh red blood. After waiting for a while, Ling Er's eyelashes trembled slightly, and she slowly woke up. Xiaochen. What happened? Why did I lose consciousness all of a sudden? Ling looked at Xiaochen in confusion. She turned her head and saw Feng Yulei standing at the side, looking at her with concern. She quickly asked, Senior Brother Feng, how are your injuries? I was almost scared to death just now. Don't worry, Junior Sister Ling Er. I'm fine. Before Feng Yulei could finish, Xiaochen interrupted, oh, your senior brother is very tough. He won't die. You didn't feel anything just now because you were poisoned and fainted. You're fine now. Poisoned? What poisoned me? Why is everyone fine and only I was poisoned? Ling Er blinked her eyes in confusion and asked with a puzzled expression. It's because you were bitten by an ant called the bullet ant. Normally, these ants aren't poisonous. It's possible that they've been in the secret realm for too long, so they've mutated into poisonous ants. Xiaochen explained unhurriedly. Xiaochen didn't know much about bullet ants at first, but he happened to watch a movie about ants on his phone a few days ago, so he happened to have some knowledge about them. I see. Ling nodded, not fully understanding. Feng Yulei was very displeased that Xiaochen had taken the lead. However, he could only swallow his anger and didn't dare to protest because of Xiaochen's strength. When the conversation between the two finally came to an end, Feng Yulei quickly intervened and asked, "Junior sister Ling, how did you end up in the venerable mystic realm? After your master, Grandma Nan Shan, learned that you were missing, she specially asked me to help investigate your whereabouts. She was worried to death after not hearing from you for so long." Sigh. It's a long story. Ling sighed helplessly. She did not seem to want to talk about her experiences in front of Feng Yulei, so she changed the topic and said, "Senior brother Feng, when you return to the Cloud Guide sect, please tell my master Granny Nanshan that I'm doing well. Tell her not to worry too much and to take care of herself." "How can we do that?" "You should go back and say this yourself." Feng Yulei immediately shook his head and said, "If I tell her through me, Granny Nanshan will suspect that I am comforting her." "But I..." Linger was about to explain, but Feng Yulei interrupted her and suggested, "How about this, when I become a venerable, we will go back to the Yin sect together." After pausing for a while, Feng Yulei looked at Xiao Chen meaningfully before he added, "Junior sister Linger, you are traveling alone. What if you get tricked? What will you do? As your senior brother who grew up with you, I can't stop worrying about you either." Feng Yulei's words were obviously pointing at Xiao Chen. He felt that Xiao Chen was being nice to Linger because of her beauty. "Senior brother Feng, what do you mean by that?" Linger was a smart girl. She immediately understood that Feng Yulei was implying something. Her face darkened as she said coldly, "Xiao Chen is not a cheater. You don't know him, so don't speak carelessly and define him. Junior sister, you are taking it out of context." Feng Yulei was unwilling to give up and tried to explain. Linger waved her hand and said, "Senior brother Feng, you don't have to explain. Anyway, I won't be going back to the Yin sect for a while. You should know the specific reason. If the leader of the Yin sect, Xiaofan, hadn't forced Linger to seduce Xiao Chen and steal his forging materials, and hadn't locked Granny Nanshan up, Linger would have been very willing to go back to the Yin sect. After all, it was the sect she had grown up in. She still had some feelings for it. However, Xiaofan's series of actions made Linger feel that he had gone too far. She couldn't accept it at all. She didn't have a good impression of the Yin sect anymore. Instead, she felt much more relaxed staying by Xiao Chen's side. She didn't have to deal with so many things, and she had a bunch of sisters to play with. "Linger, I know you have some opinions about Leader Zhua. But as disciples of the sect, we have to look at the big picture. How can we do whatever we want?" Feng Yulei was Xiaofan's direct disciple. Naturally, he wouldn't side with an outsider. Instead, he lectured Linger earnestly. Linger snorted coldly and didn't respond. Feng Yulei thought that junior sister Linger had been persuaded by him. He took a step forward and wanted to get closer. However, a figure blocked his way and didn't let him go. Feng Yulei took a closer look and saw Xiao Chen looking at him with his arms crossed and a mocking expression. Feng Yulei took a step forward angrily. He pointed at Xiao Chen and said to Linger, "Besides, you saw it just now. This Xiao Chen offended the Six Directions sect and even killed their elder, Tong Yizuan. The Six Directions sect will come for him sooner or later. For your safety, you'd better go back with me. Senior brother Feng, you don't have to say any more. Xiao Chen is my husband. I know how he treats me. As for Xiaofan, forget it. I don't want to see him again in my life." Linger was not moved at all. She said with a cold smile, What? Is this guy really your man?" Feng Yulei blurted out in shock. When Xiao Chen said that Linger was his wife, Feng Yulei thought that he was just taking advantage of her verbally. He didn't expect that Linger would admit it herself. It seemed that the relationship between them was not as simple as he thought. Could it be that they had developed feelings for each other after hitting the home run? "Are you done with your **T? If I weren't Linger's husband, how could I be so intimate with her?" Xiao Chen, who had been silent, countered impatiently. He could see that Feng Yulei was not going to give up. But, she. Feng Yulei stuttered for a long time, but he didn't know what he was trying to say. Xiaochen didn't care what he wanted to say. He waved his hand and said coldly, "Before I change my mind, you and your people from the Yin Cloud sect should disappear from my sight. Otherwise, I won't be polite anymore." You. Feng Yulei was so angry that he clenched his teeth. However, the scene where Xiaochen killed Tong Yizuan with a slap was still vivid in his mind. He really didn't have the courage to confront Xiaochen. "You what? Are you stuttering? Do you need me to check it for you?" Xiaochen clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. He approached Feng Yulei slowly and said with a weird smile. Chapter 12:12. In fact, Xiaochen was just putting on a show. Linger would never agree to deal with Feng Yulei like how he killed Tong Yizuan. However, it seemed that it was enough. Feng Yulei shut his mouth immediately and glared at Xiaochen. Then, he left with the people of the Yin Cloud sect without saying a word. Xiaochen, was I too heartless? After all, Feng Yulei is my senior brother of the same sect. Linger sighed and said in a low voice as she watched Feng Yulei leave angrily. "Sister Linger, don't be silly. Xiaofan brought this upon himself. It has nothing to do with you." Ling Qianxue walked over and squatted down to stroke Linger's hair. She comforted her in a soft voice. "Really?" Linger, the cheerful and proud Linger, looked at Ling Qianxue helplessly like a lost child. "Of course it's true. You still don't believe what I said?" Ling Qianxue nodded seriously. "Now that Xiaofan can order you around as a tool for the interests of himself and his sect, you don't have to feel too guilty. Learn from me and be more open-minded." Linger suddenly remembered that Ling Qianxue was indeed the most qualified person to say these words. Because she was also used as a tool by the Cherry Blossom Group and was rescued by Xiaochen in the end. Well, since the problem has been solved, let's not think too much about it. You guys should go into the secluded training room to practice. I'll stand guard outside and protect you. Xiaochen clapped his hands and said with a smile. Linger took a deep breath and nodded. When she was about to stand up, Xiaochen suddenly bent down and kissed her on the cheek in front of everyone. Ah! Linger was shocked. She blushed and didn't dare to raise her head. She felt that her friends around her were laughing at her. Xiaochen shook his head. He carefully helped Linger up and sent her into the seclusion room. Although she was still a little shy, she felt much better after being kissed by Xiaochen. After entering the seclusion area, she sat down with her legs crossed and eliminated the distracting thoughts in her mind. She began to circulate the sect's mental cultivation technique to focus on breaking through to the martial supremacy realm. The others didn't say much. They all walked into the seclusion area and sat down to cultivate. Xiaochen, on the other hand, stayed outside the seclusion area and observed his surroundings. Although Chou Wanxian had said that the seclusion site had corresponding protection measures, Xiaochen did not know if they were effective. After all, several seclusion sites had failed before. Therefore, Xiaochen was still worried and decided to personally protect everyone. On the other side, Feng Yulei had a belly full of anger. He led his subordinates to find a few more secluded training spots. However, some of them had already been occupied by people from other sects, and some of them were useless. They could not find a suitable one even after a long time. Helplessly, Feng Yulei could only return to the main road to explore. However, he was really lucky today. He actually found an effective seclusion site in a secluded corner by the road. Feng Yulei was overjoyed. However, before he could step into the seclusion site, he saw a large group of people rushing toward him. Holy sh*T. I'm so unlucky today. Feng Yulei cursed inwardly. He commanded his disciples to rush toward the seclusion site. "Stop! Brat, don't go in." The leading old man naturally saw Feng Yulei and the others. He instantly determined that Feng Yulei was the leader of this group. Therefore, he used his body movement skill to rush over and stop Feng Yulei outside the seclusion site. What do you want?" Feng Yulei was secretly surprised. This old man's body movement skill was too fast. However, he soon recognized that the old man in front of him was elder son of the awakening sect. And the young man behind him was the young master of the Tang family, Tang Qianling. Feng Yulei was a little puzzled. One of them belonged to the righteous path, while the other belonged to the demonic path. How did they end up together? Before he could figure it out, elder son took out a portrait and asked, pointing at the man in it, "Brat, have you seen this man before?" "This." Feng Yulei glanced at the portrait and found it familiar. After a closer look, he thought to himself, "Holy sh*t. Isn't the man in the portrait Xiao Chen? What's going on? Could it be that Xiao Chen had offended the awakening sect and the Tang family besides the Six Harmony sect? What this and that? Don't dawdle. If you know something, just say it." Elder son frowned and was about to lose his temper. I saw this man just now. He was in the forest on that path just now. It seems he is preparing to make a seclusion." Feng Yulei rolled his eyes and pointed at the path they came from. "Oh, that's all. Go back to your seclusion." Elder son's face lit up. He winked at Tang Qianling and said nothing more. The two of them left quickly with their subordinates. They were worried that after Xiao Chen entered the seclusion spot, the protective measures would be activated. Therefore, they didn't dare to linger. They wanted to find Xiao Chen as soon as possible. Feng Yulei let out a long sigh of relief when he saw the group of people running away. Since the awakening sect and the Tang family weren't here to fight for the seclusion spot, it didn't matter anymore. He could just focus on his seclusion. In any case, he could not be bothered to find out why Xiao Chen had provoked these ruthless people. Could it be that after these people got rid of Xiao Chen, Ling would obediently follow him back to the Yinyan sect? Little Miss Xing worriedly followed behind elder son and Tang Qianling. She originally thought that they wouldn't be able to find Xiao Chen's tracks so quickly. That way, Xiao Chen and Tang Qianling would be able to stall for a while longer. If Xiao Chen could find a seclusion spot during this time, he could at least wait until Jia Muzhen, Cheng Menjing, and the other women broke through to the Venerable Realm. In this way, Xiao Chen would have a few more helpers when dealing with the awakening sect. In the end, Xiao Chen's whereabouts were already exposed in less than a day. What should they do? However, Xiao Chen's side did not care about being ambushed, because they had already encountered an even more troublesome problem. It was worth noting that everyone had to resist the pressure emitted by the Venerable One's origin force during their seclusion in order to successfully advance. However, it was usually very difficult for an ordinary cultivator to resist this kind of pressure. This was also the reason why many people couldn't smoothly advance even after coming to the Venerable Realm. These people often couldn't withstand the pressure and would fall at the threshold of the door, ultimately failing at the last step. Xiao Chen's group also encountered the same problem. Because everyone's strength was uneven, they were all relatively weak. None of them had reached the Great Perfection Monarch realm, so they couldn't withstand the pressure of a Venerable's origin power at all. Cheng Menjing and the other women were fine. They often cultivated with Xiao Chen, so their bodies were full of aura. Basically, they had already reached the King realm, so they could barely resist the pressure. Chapter 12-13. Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong, on the other hand, were in a more tragic situation. Both of them were only martial generals. After being oppressed by the ancient aura for a few times, their internal organs were damaged, and their qi and blood flowed in the opposite direction. They almost vomited blood and died in the seclusion area. Fortunately, Xiaofan discovered them in time and healed them, saving their lives. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. Xiaofan, I don't think we can go on like this. Xiaofan adjusted his breathing for a while, and his face gradually regained some color. He shook his head and said helplessly, unless we can break through to the full circle king realm, we definitely won't be able to withstand such a powerful pressure. We will die sooner or later. Jiaranzhong nodded with a pale face. He had also been tortured terribly by the Venerable One's origin power. Fortunately, he had brought some high-grade healing pills with him, and with Xiaofan's key healing in time, he barely managed to stay alive. However, it took a long time for him to recover. I know that, but we don't have time to wait for you to advance to the full circle king realm. It seems that we can only find other ways to break through to the venerable realm. Xiaofan frowned and murmured. Xiaofan had a way to help Cheng Menjing and the others advance quickly. That was to use the Venerable's origin force in the seclusion area, and then do dual cultivation with them. Based on Xiaofan's judgment of the strength of the origin force in this seclusion area, he estimated that it wouldn't take long for the girls to successfully break through, and the problem would be solved. But, what about Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong? He couldn't possibly let them join in, right? After all, when they were doing dual cultivation, they weren't wearing clothes. Not to mention that he couldn't agree to it, these girls would definitely not agree to it. Elder Heaven Ancestor, do you know of any way to let people advance quickly? Xiaofan was really at his wits' end this time, so he simply asked in his mind. Instead of sitting there and letting his imagination run wild, he might as well ask the encyclopedia, the Elder Heaven Ancestor. Of course, dual cultivation. Elder Heaven Ancestor said matter-of-factly. Pfft. Xiaofan almost spat. Wasn't that the same as not saying anything? Xiaofan thought that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was joking, so he could only patiently ask, I also know that dual cultivation can level up, but how am I supposed to find two girls to accompany Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong in dual cultivation? Besides, even if they come, they might not agree. Who told you that dual cultivation can only be carried out by a man and a woman? Elder Sky rolled his eyes and snappily said, even if it's two men, they can still dual cultivate. It's just that the efficiency will be slower, and it won't be as smooth as yin-yang dual cultivation. Holy shit! Elder Heaven Ancestor, your taste is too heavy. Don't tell me that you want me and Jia Muzhen to become two white pigs and then undergo dual cultivation. I'm not gay, and this scene is too indecent. Xiaofan couldn't help but shiver and couldn't help but complain. He was a standard straight man, and he didn't dare to imagine the scene of two men naked, let alone one of them being him. It was simply too intoxicating. Are you stupid or not? Don't you want Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong to dual cultivate? Moreover, when two men dual cultivate, they don't need to take off their clothes. Because the cultivation progress is relatively slow, the damage caused isn't that strong, and the clothes won't be shattered in the process of breaking through. Elder Heaven Ancestor was a little speechless at Xiaofan's description, and helplessly explained, besides, it's not a big deal even if the two of them are shattered. Oh, so that's how it is, I understand. Xiaofan was suddenly enlightened, and secretly nodded. However, when he imagined the scene of Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong dual cultivating, he still felt a little strange, and his heart was very uncomfortable. Now that the problem was solved, the next step was to immediately start the dual cultivation. However, before Xiaofan could fully reveal his plan to Jia Muzhen and Cheng Menjing, his divine sense suddenly sensed a group of people coming from afar. Ha ha ha. Xiaofan, I've finally caught you. A long laugh came from afar, and a familiar voice was getting closer and closer. I didn't expect you to be hiding in such a remote place. If it wasn't for this old man's good luck, it's very likely that I would have let you escape. As Elder Sun shouted, he took the lead and rushed to the front of the group. He was afraid that Xiaofan and the others would take advantage of the chaos to escape if they started fighting, so he quickly blocked their path of retreat. Then, he made a few changing hand gestures to the disciples of Awakening Heaven sect. Those disciples received Elder Sun's secret signal, and immediately formed a circle, separating Xiaochen, Jia Muzhen, and the others, in order to prevent them from supporting each other and helping Xiaochen escape. Tang Qianling arrived with the disciples of the Tang family, and he was not in a hurry to make a move. He just stood outside Awakening Heaven sect and watched the battle. In his opinion, just these people of Awakening Heaven sect were enough to deal with Xiaochen. Xiaochen, Xiaochen, you know that you can only exert the strength of a king's great perfection in this place, but you still shamelessly came to die. You're really stupid. Tang Qianling stood far away, and sneered insolently, today, even if you grow a pair of wings, you won't be able to fly out of our encirclement. Don't make any unnecessary resistance, and obediently wait for your death. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll leave your corpse intact. Other than Elder Sun, Tang Qianling, and the team they led, there were two other people walking at the back. They were Miss Xing and Jia Tuyao. At this moment, when the two of them saw Xiaochen being surrounded, their expressions were as different as night and day. Miss Xing looked a little worried that Xiaochen would be outnumbered, and kept thinking about how to help him out of this predicament. Jia Tuyao, on the other hand, looked like he was watching a play with great interest, fantasizing about how he would take over the Jia family after Xiaochen, Jia Muzhen, and the others were killed, and then naturally become the successor of the Jia family. Regarding Jia Tuyao's betrayal, Xiaochen didn't feel strange at all, because he had already expected it. However, Jia Muzhen was extremely angry. He suddenly stood up, pointed at Jia Tuyao, and yelled, Jia Tuyao. Grandpa has always been good to you, but I didn't expect that you would join hands with outsiders to deal with us. You've done such a treacherous thing, deserting all your friends and family. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? I'm so scared. If you're so capable, let the lightning strike me. The corners of Jia Tuyao's mouth hooked up, and he said in a strange tone, Don't worry, after you die, my father and I will go back to the Jia family, and kill that old bastard. At that time, the position of the Jia family's master will naturally fall on my head, and you, a bastard, will only deserve to be buried in this desolate place. Chapter 12-14. Hearing this, Jia Muzhen couldn't help but tremble in anger. He wished he could fly over and slap Jia Tuyao to death. However, he also knew that the current situation didn't allow him to act recklessly. Even if the people of Open Heaven sect could turn a blind eye to his actions, Jia Tuyao was still more powerful than him, and it would be bad if he affected Xiaochen's side. Oh right, you reminded me. Xiaochen suddenly patted his forehead and interrupted. Reminded, of what? Jia Tuyao was a bit confused. This kid is trapped in a tight encirclement, why does he still have time to care about me? Why is he so open-minded? I've been cultivating for so long, but I haven't tried the Thunderball magic yet. Leisurely snapping his fingers, Xiaochen operated his power and condensed a crackling thunderbolt ball in his hand. Then, he waved his hand and threw it towards Jia Tuyao while adding, Since you want to be struck by thunderbolts so much, I'll fulfill your little wish today. Don't thank me, it's just a piece of cake for me. What? Jia Tuyao only managed to say 2 words before he saw a dark blue thunder ball rise from Xiaochen's hand and fly straight towards him. It didn't meet any obstacle during its flight, and lightly landed on his body. Within the span of one breath, Jia Tuyao's entire body was shrouded in thunder and lightning. He couldn't help but tremble violently like a sieve. Painful screams echoed in the jungle. However, it was the first time for Xiaochen to condense a thunderball magic, so he wasn't proficient in it yet. Therefore, it didn't cause direct harm like fireballs or ice balls. Instead, it gradually eroded Jia Tuyao's skin and flesh. Although it couldn't kill Jia Tuyao with one strike, this kind of continuous harm made Jia Tuyao feel even more pain. The pain caused by the electric current shuttling through his body was beyond anyone's imagination. Wow, wow, wow. Xiao Chen, my husband, you're so awesome. I, sour, admire you so much. Seeing Jia Tuyao twisting his body and waving his arms, Tian Soran excitedly shouted, "Ha, look, look! Even Jia Tuyao's bones have been electrocuted out. It's just like a scene in a cartoon. My man is so awesome." The others on the scene weren't as happy as Tian Wangchuan, especially the few Tang family disciples who stood closest to Jia Tuyao. They were afraid that they might be harmed by the thunderbolts, so they hurriedly ran away. Fortunately, this time, Xiao Chen's thunderball magic didn't last too long. Not long after that, the last bolt of lightning disappeared from Jia Tuyao's body. Jia Tuyao's entire body was charred black, and after he stopped shaking, he fell straight backwards and thudded against the ground. His eyes were tightly closed, and his arms and legs were twitching from time to time. No one knew whether he was still alive or not. The thunderball spell is quite fun. Xiao Chen nodded satisfactorily. He condensed another 2 thunderballs in his hands, turned around, glanced at elder son smilingly, and said in an extremely gentle tone, "Little son, do you want to do an electrotherapy for yourself? I'm sure you'll be left with endless aftertaste, and instantly become dozens of years younger. For the sake of our good relationship, I'll do it for you for free." Looking at the thunderballs in Xiao Chen's hands, elder son couldn't help but tremble and take a small step back. In order not to let Xiao Chen see the fear in his heart, elder son took a deep breath, plucked up his courage and said, "Xiao Chen, you're only at the peak of the Devil King level. Even if you can perform some strange magic, so what? Your devil energy will run out sooner or later, and that will be the time of your death. Oh. Since you're so confident, you can give it a try." Xiao Chen didn't mind. He said with a smile, "Actually, I'm also quite curious. Will I run out of devil energy first, or will you be electrocuted until your bones are out?" As soon as he said that, Xiao Chen immediately waved his hands outward. 2 thunderballs flew out from his hands, whistling toward elder son and another awakening sect's disciple. Motherf ****. Elder son cursed in his heart. Naturally, he didn't dare to take the thunderball spell head-on. Seeing that, he quickly took a step back and reached out to drag the awakening sect's disciple who was standing on the side to block in front of him, taking the thunderball for him. The 2 awakening sect's disciples didn't have the ability to dodge, and they were both hit by the thunderballs. They screamed and trembled like they were electrocuted. This time, Xiao Chen injected more essence energy into the thunderball spell. The 2 of them didn't last long before their bodies were already emitting black smoke from the electric shock. Their eyes rolled back and it looked like they were about to die. Elder Sun saw that the surrounding disciples were cowering in fear from Xiao Chen's few thunderballs and immediately knew that something was wrong. If they were to let Xiao Chen continue playing around like this, his side's morale would be dispirited. "All of you, charge forward and dodge those thunderballs. Find an opportunity to kill this little bastard." Elder Sun made a prompt decision and immediately shouted. He directed the awakening sect's disciples to attack Xiao Chen while he hid to the side, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Those disciples were originally quite afraid of Xiao Chen's thunderball spell. However, when they heard Elder Sun's guidance, they suddenly recalled that the 3 thunderballs from before, Xiao Chen took a longer time to condense them. Furthermore, the speed at which the condensed thunderballs flew wasn't fast. With so many people on their side, it should be easy to dodge. With this thought, the group of disciples mustered their courage and charged forward with a roar. Elder Sun watched from the side. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to sneak an attack on Xiao Chen. However, just as his body moved, another thunderball came at him. He didn't dare to take it head-on and could only dodge to the side helplessly. As Xiao Chen's proficiency continued to increase, the time it took for Xiaofan to condense the thunderball technique became shorter and shorter. His power and speed also continued to increase. Those awakening Heaven Gate disciples who were still harboring hope finally felt a little afraid when they saw wave after wave of people charging forward and falling one after another. They saw that the number of people charging forward decreased. They looked at each other and everyone was secretly retreating. The space around Xiaofan also increased. Seeing the charred corpses all over the ground, Elder Sun realized the seriousness of the problem. In order to prevent unnecessary casualties, he immediately got the awakening sect disciples to stop attacking. When the disciples who were hesitating heard this, they immediately stopped and scattered far away. Jia Muzhen, Cheng Menjing, and the other women were a little worried at first. They thought that Xiaofan would be outnumbered. They were ready to leave the seclusion area and come out to help. But before they could walk out of the seclusion area, they saw the awakening sect disciples fall one after another like wheat being cut. It seemed that they didn't need to help anymore, so they stopped. Chapter 12-15. Why are all of you hiding? Continue sending people over for me to kill. My electric ball skill points are almost full. Seeing that the last two electric balls had missed, Xiaofan furrowed his brows in dissatisfaction and protested. Elder Sun almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Do you think you're playing a game? You want to farm skill points? Do you think we're monsters for you to level up? Boring, I'll pick my own. Xiaofan pursed his lips and congealed another two electric balls. He suddenly turned around and threw them towards Tang Qianling's position. F***CK. Tang Qianling jumped in fright and cursed as he dodged one of the electric balls. However, the other electric ball was coming from a tricky angle and was extremely fast. It was too late for him to dodge it. In a moment of desperation, he could only pull a Tang family disciple over and use him as a shield. Boom! The ball of lightning smashed into the Tang family disciple's body. He didn't even have the time to cry out. He trembled violently a few times before falling to the ground. White smoke rose from his body and he lay there unmoving. Clearly, he was already a corpse. What's going on? It's over? Xiaofan looked around at the trembling enemies and stretched lazily. Xiaofan, I haven't even finished warming up. Don't hide, come out and continue playing. Don't you think it's not exciting enough? Alright, let me show you some real strength. Xiaofan did not want to waste any more time. His body trembled slightly and he displayed the strength of a level 2 original infant stage cultivator. He then waved at Tang Qianling and Elder Sun who were hiding far away. WH. What? You actually have the strength of a martial honorable? How is that possible? Elder Sun thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. He rubbed his eyes and realized that they were still the same. He could not help but be extremely shocked and his mouth could not close. Tang Qianling was also extremely shocked. Didn't everyone say that after entering the honorable realm, everyone's cultivation would be suppressed to the full circle martial honorable realm? This Xiaofan. How the hell is he not affected at all? Was he a monster? Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. I, Xiaofan, am an amazing ability user. I won't be restricted by this hidden territory at all. Xiaofan shrugged and said casually. Arcanist? What the hell was that? How come he had never heard anyone mention it before? You're a saint. Elder Sun and Tang Qianling both had a bellyful of questions. Elder Sun suddenly thought of something. Could it be that the Saint Seiya technique that little Lass Xing told him about last time was the technique that allowed Xiaofan to not be suppressed by the secret realm? Xiaofan looked coldly at the two dumbfounded fellows and said indifferently, Are you two idiots standing there like statues? Were they still going to fight? If you want to fight, then hurry up. If you don't want to fight, then take your subordinates and scram. My wives are getting ready to break through. I'm going to clear the place. Tang Qianling and elder son's minds raced. They looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. They were only at the full circle king realm. Even if they joined forces, they would not be able to deal with Xiao Chen. After all, the difference in strength between an honorable and a king was obvious. Even if they included their subordinates, they would not be able to fight against Xiao Chen head-on. They would only be cannon fodder if they went. Hero Xiao, we know we were wrong. You and your wives can focus on your cultivation. We'll leave now, right away. Elder son said weakly. Turning around, elder son secretly gave Xing Las a look, indicating for her to stay and observe Xiao Chen's movements. He, on the other hand, led the disciples of Awakening Heaven sect and hurriedly fled. In a few breaths' time, only their silhouettes could be seen in the distance. That. Hero Xiao, please continue. We'll also leave, he. Tang Qianling also smiled and retreated with small steps. Tang Qianling was not a fool. Since Awakening Heaven sect could not do anything to Xiao Chen, he naturally would not stay here and wait for death. So what if he mastered the 5 poisons secret manual? Right now, the two sides were not on the same level. There was no need to throw away his life for nothing. It was better to obediently admit defeat. Wait. Before Tang Qianling could run far, Xiao Chen's figure flashed and appeared in front of him. He pointed at the corpses on the ground and said, "Since you're ready to leave, then take all this trash with you. It's an eyesore to me and it will also affect my wife's mood when she cultivates." Okay. Tang Qianling did not dare to refuse at this moment. He nodded his head quickly and immediately ordered the disciples of the Tang clan to move all the corpses on the ground. Then, he gave Xiao Chen a smile that was uglier than his father's death and quickly fled the scene. After everyone disappeared into the fog, Xing Las finally let out a big sigh of relief. She walked towards Xiao Chen and said with a face full of hidden bitterness, "Xiao Chen, you already knew that you were not restricted by the Honorable Realm's secret realm, right? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Really, I was worried about you, for half a day. I was thinking about how to pass the message to you. I already told you, you just didn't listen carefully." Xiao Chen spread out his hands and said innocently, "If I didn't have full confidence in dealing with them, why would I let you tell the truth and pass the message that I'm heading north?" "Humph. You're always so mysterious. Who knows what you mean by saying that? I thought you would choose to change your route halfway." Xing Las rolled her eyes and said unhappily, TSK, you can't even think of such a simple thing. It seems like you're not much smarter than elder son and the rest." Xiao Chen shook his head and joked. Xing Las wrinkled her nose and protested, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm much smarter than elder son. Otherwise, why would he be fooled by me?" All right, I know you're good." Xiao Chen patted Xing Las's head and did not want to argue with her anymore. He pulled her to the seclusion area and called the others over to form a circle. Xiao Chen stood in the middle of the circle and said unhurriedly, "Since the problem has been solved and Xing Las has arrived, let's officially start breaking through to the Honorable Realm. However, this time, we'll change the method. Instead of you doing it alone, we'll use the method of dual cultivation." Dual cultivation here? Then wouldn't Sister Sour be seen by everyone? Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, Tian Sour exclaimed in surprise. She covered her mouth and grumbled to herself. Normally, Tian Suruan did not reject the idea of taking off her clothes and engaging in dual cultivation with everyone in the Jia family's room. In fact, she was very passionate about it. However, in a public place like this, no matter how unrestrained she was unable to reach the state of being completely focused. Chapter 12-16. Actually, Xiao Chen was interrupted by Cheng Menjing before he could finish his sentence. Ahem. That's right. Xiao Chen, what kind of stupid idea did you come up with? I'm not going to take off my clothes in public. I've already rejected this method. Hurry up and think of another way. Cheng Menjing glared at Xiao Chen, put her hands on her hips, and shouted angrily. That. Xiao Chen tried to explain, but was interrupted by Tang Tang. Xiao Chen, I think I should be able to break through by myself. Actually, I almost succeeded just now. It seems like I'm just a breath away. If I work hard, I'll be able to become a venerable expert. Why don't you let me try again by myself? Tang Tang's expression was a bit unnatural. Although she had always been carefree like a tomboy, this matter was still a bit hard for her to accept. Moreover, Tang Tang was originally in the half-step venerable realm. Previously, when she was cultivating in the seclusion area, she indeed felt that she had touched the barrier of breaking through to the venerable realm. However, in the end, she was still unable to resist the powerful pressure, which caused all her previous efforts to go to waste. Ling Er and Ling Qinxue looked at each other. Obviously, they also found it hard to accept the idea of dual cultivation in the wild. However, they did not express it directly. They only smiled bitterly and shook their heads in unison, clearly showing their resistance. Chick Xing stood at the side, looking like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not say anything. That. Xiao Chen, I think what Cheng Menjing and the others said is quite reasonable. Moreover, it's already so late. Where can we find 2 girls to dual cultivate with me and everyone else? We can't. Jia Muzhen shut his mouth and looked at Cheng Menjing and the others. He touched his nose embarrassedly and looked at Xiao Chen, saying, why don't you think of another way? It's like this. Xiao Chen was about to speak for the 3rd time, but Tian Wangshou immediately interrupted, Tisk, 4 eyes, look at your dirty thoughts. What kind of good things are you thinking about? Who wants to dual cultivate with you? I'm only willing to perform dual cultivation with my husband, Xiao Chen. I won't accept any other man. No matter how much they offered, they wouldn't accept. I'm a girl with principles. That's not what I meant, I mean. Jia Muzhen's face immediately turned red, and he waved his hands repeatedly. Just as he was about to explain, he heard Xiao Chen roar, all of you stop talking, listen to me. Everyone immediately stopped talking and looked at Xiao Chen in unison. You guys, you keep talking. Are you going to let me speak? Xiao Chen rolled his eyes at everyone. Alright, don't interrupt me this time. Listen to what I have to say. Seeing that everyone finally quieted down, Xiao Chen patiently repeated what the elder heaven ancestor had said to them before, and then said, so, as long as you use the venerable origin force to improve your cultivation, and then use the method of dual cultivation to bear the coercion together, you can successfully break through to the strength of the venerable realm. Since the venerable origin force of the seclusion site was determined by the number of people who entered, and regardless of the strength of the people who entered, they would all be treated as if they were in the king realm. Therefore, when the origin force was transformed into coercion, everyone had to bear the same pressure. However, people with high strength like Tang Tang had a high tolerance for coercion, while people like Jia Muzhen could not bear it. With Xiao Chen's cultivation at the peak of the 2nd level of the nascent soul stage, it was easy for him to bear a few more layers of coercion. Even if the coercion of everyone present was to be borne by Xiao Chen alone, it would not be a big problem for a cultivator like him. Originally, Cheng Menjing, who was also a cultivator, could also easily break through, but her mental cultivation method seemed to be a little different from Xiao Chen's, plus there was a gap between her strength and the nascent soul stage, so she failed just now. No way. You want me to dual cultivate with 2 men, Renzhong? Will this really work? Jia Muzhen asked with a stutter. He turned his head to look at Jia Renzhong and found that he was also looking away with an awkward face. It could be seen that the 2 of them had the same idea. Dual cultivation had always been between a man and a woman, and they had never heard of two men performing it. Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong always felt that it was a little strange to dual cultivate like this. After all, both of them were men with normal sexual orientations, and they did not have any homosexual interests, so it was inevitable that they would feel uncomfortable. Tian Suruan, on the other hand, was a little gloating. Thinking back to the gay manga she had read before, she could not help but laugh, and could not help but tease, ha ha ha. Four eyes, Sister Suruan, according to my experience of reading manga, I guess after you and Jiaranzhong perform dual cultivation, you may lose interest in women, and the two of you can directly fly together. Jia Muzhen's face turned pale, and he looked at Xiaochen with some fear. If it was really like what Tian Suruan said, then he would rather be suffocated by the coercion than choose dual cultivation. Mu Sen, human crowd, don't listen to Sour's nonsense. She's just weird and doesn't look like she's serious at all. Xiaochen also saw the awkwardness of Jia Muzhen and Jiaranzhong, so he gently knocked on Tian Suruan's head and explained. Hero Xiaochen, are you sure there won't be any problems with this dual cultivation? Jiaranzhong asked weakly. Xiaochen said seriously, although I have not personally tested it, I have never heard of any problems. Besides, this is the only way for you to break through to the venerable realm as soon as possible. You should weigh the pros and cons yourself. Then. Alright. In order to become a venerable expert, Jia Muzhen could only go all out. Anyway, dual cultivation did not require him to take off his clothes, so there was nothing embarrassing about it. Since Jia Muzhen had no objections, Jiaranzhong could only nod in agreement. Although he was still a little conflicted, he quickly calmed down when he thought that he could not be a burden to the team. But, in broad daylight, are we really going to take off our clothes? Cheng Menjing was still a little hesitant. She had never thought about dual cultivation in the wild. Even if Jia Muzhen and the others were far away from her, what if someone passed by the seclusion site? Didn't they already see everything? Although when the seclusion site was opened, defensive measures would automatically be activated, it was only a defensive formation. Other than resisting the invasion of outsiders, it had no other purpose. Anyone who passed by the seclusion site would be able to clearly see the situation inside. Don't worry, in order to prevent the naked body from being exposed, I will set up an illusion. I will not let others see the real situation. Xiaochen patted Cheng Menjing's head comfortingly, then waved his hand and said, Is there any problem, everyone? Then let's start immediately. Chapter 12-17. After Jia Muzhen and the Jiaranzhong walked to the side and sat down, Xiaochen first set up an illusion barrier for them and then set up a barrier for himself. The barrier that Xiaochen set up could not only defend against normal attacks, but it also added another layer of protection to the defensive formation of the seclusion location. Furthermore, it could create illusions to prevent outsiders from seeing what was going on inside. It was as if everyone was dual cultivating in the room and did not have to worry about being seen at all. With this, the women finally felt a lot more at ease. One by one, they began to take off their clothes and sat down cross-legged, preparing to dual cultivate with Xiaochen. Xing Gongzi, why aren't you taking off your clothes? Why are you sitting there in a daze? Xiaochen also took off his jacket and placed it to the side. Just as he was about to sit down, he turned to look at Xing Gongzi, who was still fully clothed and sitting alone. He couldn't help but ask in bewilderment. Xing Gongzi's expression was a little bashful as she stammered, that, Xiaochen, why don't you set up a separate barrier for me? I can break through by myself. I'm not used to being with you guys. Just now, she had watched as the clothes on the surrounding women gradually decreased. She had a very subtle and strange feeling in her heart. She also knew how to dual cultivate, but she never thought that she would actually have to dual cultivate with Xiaochen. From Xing Gongzi's point of view, although her relationship with Xiaochen was not bad, it wasn't close to this stage. Therefore, there was a barrier in her heart that was a little difficult to cross. Xing Gongzi didn't even know how to take the first step. Right now, she didn't even have the courage to unbutton her clothes. She could only watch as the women very naturally took off their clothes and prepared to dual cultivate. Little Xing Gongzi, sooner or later, you will be husband Xiao Chen's woman. Why bother with these small details? There's not much difference between a step earlier or a step later. Tian Souring teased with a smile. No, no. Xing Gongzi shook her head in embarrassment. Her face was as red as an apple. She didn't know how to explain herself. Tian Souran chuckled as he quietly stood up and walked over. He hugged Xing's waist from behind, his hands continuously moving upwards as he exclaimed in surprise, "Wah wah wah wah. I really couldn't tell, Xing, you're actually quite capable." She wasn't much younger than Sister Sourly, and was even stronger than Sister Menjiang. TSK, and the feeling is quite good. It must be because you often exercise. Sour, what are you doing? Miss Xing was completely shocked and almost jumped up. She hurriedly stopped Tian Suruan's perverted hands from kneading her. Her face was red as she dodged to the side. She wished that there was a hole in the ground that she could crawl into. Sour, stop messing around. What does it have to do with you that Xing Gongzi is willing to break through on his own? Come back and sit properly. Cheng Menjing hurriedly walked over and tugged on Tian Souring's ear. As she pulled her back, she lectured her. Then, she sneaked a few glances at Xing's figure. Can't you see anything? How is he stronger than me? Ouch. Ouch ouch ouch. Sister Mengying, stop pulling, Sister Soursuer's ears are going to fall off. Tian Sour stumbled back, covering his ears as he yelled while grimacing in pain. It's fine. Since you think you can break through on your own, then I won't force you. Xiao Chen understood Miss Xing's thoughts and didn't want to force her. Yes, I can do it. Miss Xing nodded her head. Her eyes darted around, but she didn't dare to look at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled helplessly and said gently to Miss Xing, however, I still have to warn you in advance. If you meet with any problems during your breakthrough, you have to come over and dual cultivate with us. Don't force yourself. Otherwise, I won't be able to divert my attention to save you. Do you understand? I understand, Miss Xing said in a low voice. Miss Xing said in a low voice, then she walked to the corner and sat down cross-legged with her back facing Xiao Chen and the others. She closed her eyes and began to channel her mind to focus on the breakthrough. Xiao Chen looked at Miss Xing's back and shook his head secretly. He felt that this girl was quite stubborn, but he didn't say much. He quickly took off the rest of his clothes and came to Cheng Menjing and the others. He entered the dual cultivation state with them. With the activation of the protection array of the retreat point, a pure aura of heaven and earth quickly spread in the retreat point, but it was followed by a suffocating pressure. Everyone in the retreat point had a change in expression. Xiao Chen's side was fine. The women were just a little uncomfortable at first. Later, with Xiao Chen's help, their complexion gradually improved, and they began to break through with all their might. However, Miss Xing's situation was not very good. Although she was already at the great perfection of the Demon King, she was still a little out of breath when she was suddenly pressed by the pressure. This feeling was like she was suddenly hit in the chest when she was fighting with someone. Moreover, the opponent's strength was above her. This kind of palm force continued to oppress her, and she couldn't get rid of it at all. Now, apart from resisting with all her strength, Miss Xing had no other way to deal with this kind of pressure. She was a little regretful at the moment. Although the Venerable's origin force was indeed very pure, the pressure that followed was obviously unbearable for a person. In the face of the powerful pressure, the demonic energy in her body was like an innocent child facing a fierce giant beast. It was completely powerless to resist. Poof! After silently resisting for a long time, Miss Xing felt that her internal organs were churning, and her qi and blood were a little chaotic. However, the ruthless pressure was still constantly attacking her. She was forced to spit out a mouthful of blood that had accumulated in her chest. Only then did she feel a little more comfortable. However, in this situation, Miss Xing didn't dare to force it anymore. She immediately stopped running her mental cultivation method and interrupted her cultivation. She took out an elixir from her arms and swallowed it. She closed her eyes to adjust her internal injuries, and her mind was thinking intensely. What should I do? Could it be that I can only choose to dual cultivate with Xiaochen? But to strip naked in front of so many people, especially in front of Xiaochen, this seems a little. After Miss Xing finished adjusting her breathing, she opened her eyes and turned to look in Xiaochen's direction. Although Qing Menjing and the others were also resisting the majestic pressure and didn't look too good, there were no signs of failure. It seemed that they could still persist for a long time. However, Xiaochen looked relaxed as if nothing had happened. He continued to quietly run his mental cultivation method, and the pressure didn't affect him at all. Instead, he helped Qing Menjing and the others to bear the bursts of pressure brought by the Venerable's origin force. Chapter 12:18. Looking at the scene in front of her, Xing hesitated for a moment before finally making a decision. She stood up with a blush on her face. She bit her lower lip as she unbuttoned her clothes and slowly took off her clothes. After placing her clothes to the side, Xing took a deep breath and used her hands to cover a few important parts of her body. Then, she carefully walked over to Xiaochen and the others. Walking to Xiaochen's side, Xing looked at the group of people in front of her. Their hands were pressed against each other and their eyes were closed. They were all focused on cultivating and didn't seem to have noticed her arrival. Xing Qiu didn't dare to interrupt them. She was afraid that she would distract them and cause them to go berserk. However, the clean and smooth Xing Qiu stood there alone. She felt that it was very awkward to stand there and not say anything. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't just stand there and wait for them to finish their breakthroughs before allowing Xiaochen to dual cultivate with her alone, right? That would be even more difficult to accept. Just as Xing Qiu didn't know what to do, Xiaochen suddenly opened his eyes slightly and glanced at her. He used his eyes to signal for her to sit beside him. Then, he closed his eyes again and continued to circulate his mental cultivation. It turned out that when Xiaochen was cultivating with the girls, he had continuously released his divine sense. Thus, when he sensed Xing Qiu's arrival, he hesitated and stood there as if he didn't know what to do. Thus, he gave her some pointers. When she realized that Xiaochen had suddenly opened his eyes and looked at her, Xing Qiu jumped in fright. However, when she met Xiaochen's gaze, she realized that his eyes were extremely clear and didn't have any distracting thoughts. Furthermore, he quickly closed his eyes and didn't look at her body. Xing Qiu slowly calmed down and sat cross-legged on the ground. However, she still subconsciously covered her body with her hands and wasn't willing to immediately put them down. Feeling that Xing Qiu wasn't able to let go and didn't move for a long time, Xiaochen became anxious. However, he didn't dare to suddenly let go when he was bearing the pressure for the girls. He could only close his eyes and whisper to Xing Qiu, "Xing Gongzi, give me your left hand and then use your right hand to touch Qing Menjing's left hand." Little Miss Xing was stunned for a moment before she suddenly reacted. She had joined in midway, so Xiaochen definitely couldn't let go of her and command her at this time. Otherwise, the rest of the people might immediately be injured by the pressure. Therefore, she could only rely on herself for everything. Gritting her teeth, little girl Xing relaxed her left hand that was covering her chest. She gently reached over and placed it on the right hand that Xiaochen had just separated from Qing Menjing's. Then, she quickly extended her own right hand and replaced Xiaochen in placing it on Qing Menjing's left hand. Feeling the unending flow of pure energy from both sides, little girl Xing couldn't be bothered to think about useless things anymore. She closed her eyes and began to circulate her mental cultivation method with all her might, attempting to break through. On the other side, Cheng Menjing suddenly felt Xiao Chen's thick palm pull away. She was also slightly startled. However, before she could think further, another delicate palm quickly came over. Cheng Menjing was exceptionally intelligent. After thinking for a while, she understood the reason. It seemed that little girl Xing had broken through the defenses in her heart and was finally willing to come over and cultivate with them. Although she was secretly happy in her heart, Cheng Menjing's expression didn't change as she continued to focus on breaking through. Due to the addition of little girl Xing, Xiaochen felt that the pressure coming from all directions had become even more intense. Fortunately, it was still within an acceptable range. He wouldn't collapse just because of the addition of another person. More importantly, Xiaochen suddenly discovered something strange during his cultivation. In the past, if he wanted to level up, he would need to accumulate yuan qi and reach the peak stage before he could break through to the next level. However, this time, Xiaochen felt that his strength was gradually increasing along with his cultivation. It actually directly surpassed the peak stage and allowed him to touch the barrier of the second level of the original infant stage. This situation made Xiaochen feel a little incredulous. Could it be that he had already gone mad and was hallucinating? Xiaochen, don't be so surprised. The elder heaven ancestor could naturally feel Xiaochen's confusion and explained in his mind, after a cultivator enters the original infant stage, they will no longer level up like before. The barrier of the peak stage has already disappeared. You don't need to know the details for now. In any case, there won't be any problems. Just focus on cultivating. Oh, that's good. Hearing this, Xiaochen nodded slightly. Since the elder heaven ancestor had explained the situation, he was a lot more relieved. He continued to immerse himself in resisting the pressure and cultivating. Not long after, Xiaochen suddenly felt that the heaven and earth spiritual qi, or the venerable original force, gradually became thicker and thicker inside the barrier. All of it gathered around Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang. In contrast, the pressure that the two women endured had also increased a lot. Their faces were a little pale, and even their breathing became rapid. Vaguely, Xiaochen felt that this scene seemed a little familiar. He quickly used yuan qi to check the situation of the two women. He found that both Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang had reached the threshold of a breakthrough. Tang Tang was about to break through to the venerable realm, and Cheng Menjing was about to break through to the original infant stage. Only then did Xiaochen realize that this scene was very familiar. No wonder he felt that this scene was very familiar. Didn't this phenomenon occur when he broke through in the past? Seeing that the two women were a little strained, Xiaochen increased the strength of the guidance. He continued to use yuan qi to gradually transfer the stronger pressure that the two women endured to himself. The transfer of the pressure was considered smooth. Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang's complexion gradually began to improve. However, before Xiaochen could heave a sigh of relief, he immediately noticed that the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the barrier had become thicker again. It was faintly surging in the direction of little Miss Xing. This time, Xiaochen had enough experience. He used yuan qi to check little Miss Xing's situation. Things were as he expected. Little Miss Xing was also about to break through to the venerable realm. This was because the cultivation of the eldest Miss, Tang Tang, and little Miss Xing were not too far apart. They were already close to the threshold of the venerable realm, so their speed of breaking through was naturally faster than the other women. In fact, little Miss Xing and little Miss Xing should have broken through at the same time. It was just that they had been delayed for a while, so they were a little late. However, it was not delayed for too long. At this time, Xiaochen had just transferred half of the pressure from Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang. Little Miss Xing had suffered a little internal injury before, so her resistance to pressure was relatively poor. After experiencing the pressure, her face became even paler, and her body faintly trembled. Xiaofan keenly sensed this situation and immediately shifted his focus to little Miss Xing. In addition to continuing to receive the pressure that Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang were experiencing, he did not hesitate to guide the pressure that little Miss Xing was experiencing over. Chapter 12-19. After transferring all 3 auras to his body, Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He felt that something was amiss. He didn't expect the aura to be so much more violent than before. The 3 auras even made Xiao Chen, who wasn't restricted by the sovereign great perfection, feel a sense of suffocation. As the pressure in his body gradually increased, Xiao Chen could feel this aura jumping up and down wantonly in his dantian. Other than causing his meridians and blood vessels to expand continuously, even the speed of his heartbeat and blood flow was much faster than usual. Thump, 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 the sound of his heartbeat was like the beating of a drum, reverberating in Xiao Chen's ears. He felt as if his entire body was about to explode. Ling, and Xing, who were sitting beside Xiao Chen, also felt a trace of abnormality at this moment. This was because Xiao Chen's palms, which were pressed against their palms, were becoming hotter and hotter. The temperature was so high that it felt like it was being burned by fire. However, the 2 girls didn't dare to be distracted at this moment. After all, this was a critical moment of breaking through. A slight mistake could result in failure. Not only that, because everyone was cultivating together, their blood and qi were connected. It would also cause the others to suffer from the aura brought by the supremacy's origin force. At this moment, Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered to control his body's temperature. He was using all his strength to resist the restless aura. The qi in his body was also constantly being consumed. This was because after the 3 auras merged into one, it became like a gluttonous Taotai, endlessly devouring the qi in his body. Just as the aura was about to devour all the qi in Xiao Chen's body, another pure wave of qi suddenly surged out from his sea of consciousness and continued to be transferred to the aura. It was as if a peerless delicacy had been served just when the dishes on the dining table were about to be finished. The aura seemed to be dancing in joy and immediately rushed towards that wave of qi. Elder Heaven Ancestor, YYU, what are you doing? Xiao Chen was shocked and hurriedly asked. Since this pressure likes to devour your vitality, then I'll let it eat its fill. The Elder Heaven Ancestor was not in a hurry at all. As he spoke slowly, he controlled the Yuan Qi stored in his sea of consciousness and slowly sent it into Xiao Chen's body. No way. Why? Xiao Chen's question came to an abrupt end. He suddenly understood the Elder Heaven Ancestor's intention. The pressure in his body had become more and more swollen due to the continuous devouring of Yuan Qi. It was like a balloon, and it felt like it would explode with just a little poke. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's continuous output of Yuan Qi finally came to an end, and the last trace of Yuan Qi gushed out from his sea of consciousness. Without thinking, the round pressure directly rushed over and swallowed the Yuan Qi into his stomach. Boom boom boom. 3 loud booms suddenly came from Xiao Chen's body. The Yuan Qi became the last straw that broke through the pressure. The pressure that was like a sphere was directly blasted into countless pieces. The remains of the pressure mixed with the Yuan Qi that it had swallowed before. It flowed along the meridians in Xiao Chen's body for a few cycles, and finally slowly flowed into his dantian. At this time, Xiao Chen had just digested the shock brought by the explosion of the pressure. After looking inside himself, he was surprised to find that at the moment the pressure exploded, he had actually been blown up by 3 levels, becoming an expert at level 4 of the original infant stage. He knew that the Elder Heaven Ancestor's intention was to use the pressure to let him level up, but he did not expect that the 3 waves of pressure could let him level up by 3 levels. It was a peerless treasure that was not inferior to the treasures of heaven and earth. At the same time that Xiao Chen broke through, Miss Xing and Tang Tang also successfully leveled up and became experts at level 1 of the Venerable stage. Cheng Menjing also reached level 1 of the original infant stage. The three women let out a breath of turbid air, and instantly felt a lot more relaxed. However, they did not immediately stop cultivating. After all, Tian Suruan, Ling Er, and Ling Qianxue had not broken through yet. With the previous experience, Xiaochen was no longer worried. He guided the pressure in the other women's bodies and transferred it to his body. He also sped up the progress of their cultivation. In a short period of time, he helped them break through to the venerable stage. Unsurprisingly, Xiaochen also enjoyed the treasure, and jumped up another 3 levels. When he opened his eyes again, he was already an expert at level 7 of the original infant stage. Looking down at his own hands, Xiaochen was also very surprised. He did not expect that he only wanted to help the women endure the pressure, and he could actually reap such a huge harvest. This is too surprising. It seems that these closed-door cultivation points are good stuff. I might as well level up to the full foundation of the original infant stage before I go out. When that time comes, I won't have to be afraid of anyone. Waha! Wahaha! Xiaochen had just thought of this when he heard a familiar laughter. He raised his head and saw that it was indeed Tian Suruan who was dancing with joy. Tian Suruan had just finished her breakthrough and exhaled the turbid air in her body. Then, she immediately started cultivating and jumped around excitedly. Yay, yay, yay! Sister Suruan is also an expert at the venerable stage now. What's going on? My husband, Xiaochen, hurry up and take a look at me. I clearly remember that I have already broken through. Why am I still at the full foundation of the King realm? Suruan, you idiot. Cheng Menjing was the closest to Tian Suruan. She reached out her hand and knocked her on the head. Ouch! Ouch, ouch, ouch! Tian Suruan held her head and said pitifully, how am I stupid? If Sister Suruan is really an idiot, it won't be so easy for me to break through this time. Cheng Menjing sighed and rolled her eyes at Tian Suruan. You still say you're not stupid? In the venerable realm, everyone's cultivation level will be suppressed. Even if you become an expert at the venerable stage, your strength will still be at the full foundation of the King realm. Isn't that elder son just now a living example? Oh, I see. No, wasn't Xiaochen husband at the peak of the level 2 venerable stage? Why isn't his strength suppressed? Tian Suruan scratched her chin in surprise. Then, she muttered to herself thoughtfully, yes, Xiaochen husband is an invincible mutant. He's different from those weaklings. Tian Suruan's silly and adorable state of asking and answering her own questions made Cheng Menjing feel both angry and amused at the same time. She shook her head helplessly. The other girls were also amused after listening to her. One by one, they rocked back and forth with laughter. This Tian Suruan was simply a living treasure. With her around, the entire journey would not be lonely. Aya. Lady Xing also laughed along for a while. Then, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. She hurriedly stood up and hid to the side. She nervously put on her clothes and pants. In her haste, she almost put on the wrong side. Chapter 12:20. TSK, look, Xing's figure is really not bad. Tian Suruan propped her chin on her hand and raised her eyebrows. She looked at Xing's perfectly curved back and commented, Sister Menjing's upper body is much bigger, and her butt is also perkier than Sister Suruan's. Looks like the girls of the inner martial arts world are indeed extraordinary if they train from a young age. It's a pity that I escaped to the secular world when I was young and didn't get to enjoy this benefit. How unlucky. Big your head. I find that you're becoming more and more like an idiot. You might as well be a female pervert. Cheng Menjing couldn't help but knock Tian Suruan's head again and scolded her. Sister Menjing, you keep knocking Sister Souring's head like that. What if Sister Souring becomes stupid? Tian Souring pouted and rubbed her head as she complained gloomily. You're not smart to begin with. Who knows, maybe after I knock you a few times, you'll become a genius. When that time comes, you'll have to rush up to thank me for knocking your head. Cheng Menjing joked. She took her clothes and quickly put them on. She didn't forget to continue talking to Tian Souring. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and put on your clothes. Tian Souring pouted. Seeing that everyone was putting on their clothes, she said unwillingly, there's no one here to see. If I want to be naked, then so be it. It's cooler. What's the big deal? Cheng Menjing had already put on her clothes. Seeing that Tian Souring still didn't move, she walked over helplessly and picked up Tian Souring's clothes, helping her put them on piece by piece. I said you're stupid, and you still won't admit it. As Cheng Menjing helped her put on her clothes, she lectured, why don't you think about it? Now that we've already broken through to the Venerable Realm, Xiaochen naturally has to remove the barrier. Don't tell me we can't return. If you really don't want to wear anything, do you want to leave the Martial Honor Realm naked? Do as you please. Okay then. I'll put it on. Tian Wangshou thought that what Cheng Menjing said made sense, so she pouted and agreed. After Cheng Menjing and the others finished putting on their clothes, Xiaochen stood up and casually put on his clothes. He simply said, you guys stay here first. I'll go check on Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong's situation. I don't know if they have successfully broken through. After walking out, Xiaochen looked at the sky and found that it was already late at night. This place was relatively remote, and there were no other people wandering around. After looking around, he stepped into Jia Muzhen's barrier. As soon as he stepped into the barrier and came to the side of Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong, Xiaochen found something wrong. He saw that the two of them were sweating profusely and were trying hard to resist the pressure brought by the martial honor's origin force. However, there were no signs of a breakthrough. Xiaochen frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene. Even though they'd relied on mutual cultivation to advance into the perfection stage of the monarch realm, it was still extremely dangerous for them to charge into the exalt realm rashly without consolidating their cultivations. Based on the current situation, Xiaochen speculated that if this continued, both of them were likely to suffer from qi deviation. The situation was so urgent that Xiaochen had no choice but to sit cross-legged beside the two of them. He also used his own primordial qi to help them absorb the pressure and gradually guided the martial qi in their bodies to integrate with the surrounding spiritual qi of heaven and earth. With Xiaochen's intervention, Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong, who were originally on the verge of collapse, suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. They were not as nervous as before, and the circulation of the mental cultivation method became smoother and smoother, and the speed also increased. After about an hour or so, the pressure in the barrier finally gradually disappeared. The whole process was daunting, but not dangerous. Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong successfully broke through and became martial honor experts. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong opened their eyes and looked at Xiaochen together. Their hearts were filled with gratitude towards him. Phew, Xiaochen, thank you for your timely help. Otherwise, I'm afraid I and Jia Renzhong would have been in danger today. Jia Muzhen still felt a lingering fear when he recalled that he was suffocated by the pressure. At this moment, he finally let out a long sigh of relief and patted Xiaochen's shoulder. Big brother Xiao, words cannot express my gratitude. Jia Renzhong will remember your kindness. Jia Renzhong was also at a loss. His eyes were red, and he incoherently expressed his gratitude to Xiaochen. He did not expect that in just a day, he had successfully entered the ranks of martial honor experts. Jia Renzhong felt as if he was in a dream. Everything was so unreal. Father, mother, uncle, I have finally brought honor to my ancestors. It's nothing. Let's go, Menjing and the rest are still waiting. Let's go over and talk. Xiaofan casually waved his hand and casually snapped his fingers, removing the barrier on both sides. Then, he stood up and walked over to Qing Menjing. Wow, Four Eyes, you actually succeeded in breaking through as well. Looks like Sister Saori's husband helped you again, right? Tian Saori looked at Jia Muzin and said with a smile, when we go back, don't forget to treat us to a feast. Sister Saori wants to eat high-grade snow beef, Australian lobster, abalone, and king crab. Do you understand? Tian Saori's saliva was almost dripping down as he counted the various delicacies with his fingers. He looked like he was about to drool. No problem at all. Xiaofan has helped me so many times. It won't cost me much to treat you guys to a good meal. If one meal is not enough, we can have another one. Don't forget that I'm already the Jia clan's clan head. Jia Muzin patted his chest and agreed in a single breath. After advancing to martial honor expert, Jia Muzin had become more and more confident. After all, the internal martial arts world was a place where one's words were spoken by one's strength. Now that his strength had skyrocketed and he had the backing of a big family, his backbone was naturally firmer. Not bad. In that case, Sister Saori will be waiting for your good news. Let me tell you, don't try to fool me. Otherwise, I will let my husband Xiaofan beat you up. Tian Saori waved her little fist and said proudly. Alright, Saori, stop fooling around. Xiaofan smiled and patted Tian Saori's head. Then, he strode out of the seclusion area. Husband Xiaofan, what are you going out for? Are we going back now? Actually, Sister Saori is not in a hurry to eat a feast. Tian Saori asked curiously as she looked at Xiaofan's back. Almost everyone present had the same attitude. All of them had just broken through after enduring the harsh pressure. At this moment, they were a little tired. Moreover, it was late at night and they did not want to rush back so soon. Chapter 12:21. Xiaofan turned around and shook his head with a smile. Now that all of you are at the Venerable Realm, why don't you take this opportunity to consolidate your cultivation? After all, there is a huge gap between the Venerable Realm and the King Realm. All of you need to get used to it first. I'm just going to take a walk nearby to see if I can get some wild game. Everyone must be hungry after working hard all day. Wow, there's wild game to eat. My husband, Xiaofan, you're the best. I want to eat roast chicken, duck, and pigeon. Speaking of which, my stomach is really growling. Tian Sour cheered and touched his stomach. Then, his face turned gloomy. Xiaofan, you're going alone. That's not a good idea, is it? Why don't we go with you? If there's any danger, we can take care of each other. Tang asked with a frown. She was still worried that Xiaofan would encounter those people from the Open Heaven sect again. No problem. In this venerable secret realm, there is no one who can defeat me. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Xiaofan waved his hand. After that, his figure flashed and disappeared into the fog of the night. Everyone looked at each other. Although they were a little worried, they agreed that what Xiaofan said was true. After all, apart from him, everyone else in the venerable secret realm was suppressed to the full completion of the King realm. However, he was not affected at all. Therefore, the others were not on the same level as him. After chatting casually for a while, everyone sat down with their legs crossed and began to consolidate their cultivation. The defensive measures of the secluded cultivation area gradually emitted a faint white light as they operated their mental cultivation methods. Xiaofan, who was advancing in the night, did not look relaxed. Instead, he looked a little confused. Although he could easily kill an expert at the full completion of the Venerable Realm with his current strength, what puzzled him was that when he helped Jia Muzin and Jiaranzhong to make a breakthrough, he did not succeed. Now, he was still at level 7 of the original infant stage. What's going on? Is it because 3 men are doing dual cultivation instead of yin and yang dual cultivation, so they are unable to obtain enough spiritual qi to upgrade? That should be it. Otherwise, there would be no other explanation. Putting away his doubts, Xiaofan flew in a certain direction. He did not look like he was searching for food aimlessly. As it turned out, apart from finding food for everyone, Xiaofan had another important reason for coming out this time. When Xiaofan was breaking through, he vaguely sensed a familiar aura in the venerable realm. Although it was fleeting, Xiaofan still managed to catch hold of it. Furthermore, he could sense that the aura wasn't too far away from their seclusion location. Out of curiosity, Xiaofan decided to head over to take a look. Breaking through the thick fog surrounding him, Xiaofan released his divine sense while moving forward. Along the way, mist pervaded the air, and the place was desolate and uninhabited. From time to time, there would be 1 or 2 shrill and horrifying cries coming from the surroundings. Even when Xiaofan used his spiritual sense to sense it, he could not tell what kind of creature these cries came from. Xiaofan guessed that it was just as Qiu Wanxian had said, the cries of the strange beasts in the venerable realm. The entire venerable realm was filled with strangeness. If an ordinary person heard this sound, they would probably be terrified and paralyzed on the ground. Xiaofan did not stop even though he had such thoughts in his mind. He continued to stride forward with a clear goal in mind. As he got closer to his destination, Xiaofan's senses became stronger. Although he did not know what was waiting in front of him, he did not hesitate at all. Intuition told Xiaofan that the familiar feeling in front of him would not cause him any harm. After walking for a while, Xiaofan finally saw a cluster of fire and a white light from afar. Only then did he stop cautiously. Although Xiaofan was currently at the 7th level of the original infant stage, his cultivation had already reached the realm of returning to one's natural state. Unless the opponent was also a cultivator, and had a higher cultivation level than Xiaofan, they would not be able to sense his presence, let alone his cultivation level. However, Xiaofan did not let his guard down. He carefully hid behind a tree and condensed his divine sense into the shape of a cone. Then, he slowly released it towards the fire to investigate. What is going on? Why did I fail to break through to the venerable realm? As Xiaofan's divine sense got closer, a young man's voice could be heard from afar. It sounded a little anxious. I'm not too sure either. Everyone has used up so many treasures and finally reached the king's full circle. There's no reason for them to fail. Could it be that we have overlooked some details? Another charming and delicate female voice was heard. Xiaofan furrowed his brows slightly. This voice sounded a little familiar. However, he could not remember where he had heard it before. Impossible. Hong Laosan and I have observed carefully from the side several times. You all followed the rules and did not make any mistakes. How could you have failed? The anxious male voice gradually became louder. Obviously, Xiaofan's divine sense had spread to the vicinity of that area. This is not right. I think we must have done something we shouldn't have done in the process. I see that everyone is a little tired. Why don't we stop here for today and continue to break through tomorrow morning? What do you think? Just as his divine sense reached that ball of fire, Xiaofan finally heard a voice that made him extremely shocked, but also extremely familiar. Shen Jingxian. This kind of voice was extremely gentle and amiable even when she was scolding someone. It was a voice that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was simply the exclusive right of his eternal goddess, Shen Jingxian. Apart from her, who else could make him feel so close? How could Xiaofan not be able to tell from the way he spoke? Xiaofan's divine sense gradually spread out. Everywhere it reached, the faces of everyone around the fire were clearly revealed. At this time, Xiaofan stood motionless behind the tree. He was so shocked that he could not even speak. Other than incomparable shock, there was no other way to describe his current mood. The familiar faces of Shen Jingxian, Hong Zhu, and Hong Yan appeared in Xiao Chen's mind one by one. They were sitting in a circle in a seclusion area. Although the expressions on their faces were different, some were frowning, some were calm, Xiao Chen still recognized them in an instant. There was also a woman sitting next to them. She had a curvaceous figure and exuded a mature charm. Xiao Chen also felt that she looked a little familiar. After a closer look, he found that the woman was actually Xiaofan. Chapter 12:22. It was Consort Xia, the wealthy woman who had helped him earn his first pot of gold in order to find a dog. The Wang family and the Xia family had misunderstood her as his exclusive property. Wasn't she a pitiful woman who had been betrothed to Wang Xiongzhuang but was unable to have sex with him? Why had she come to the venerable secret realm? Judging from the way the women were whispering to each other, she seemed to be quite familiar with Hong Zhu and the others. Apart from the four women, there were two young men standing at the side of the seclusion area. They seemed to be helping to keep watch. One of the men stood closer to Xiao Chen. He was dressed in white, while the other was dressed in fiery red. Both of them had grave expressions on their faces. The conversation that Xiao Chen had heard earlier was most likely between the white-clothed man and Hong Zhu. Hong Zhu's voice was soft and coarse, and it was very easy to recognize. Xiao Chen was the closest to the white-clothed man, so his divine sense was the first to detect them. "Why don't we try again?" The white-clothed man didn't listen to Shen Jingxuan's suggestion. Clearly unwilling to give up, he continued to earnestly persuade them. "Most importantly, we don't have much time left. The sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. If we don't take this opportunity to raise everyone's strength to the venerable realm, we'll have to wait for another year. We can't afford to waste time. Song Qingshu, aren't you a little too heartless? It's already so late, and everyone has been working hard for the entire day. It wasn't easy for them to reach the peak of the King realm, and they've already failed to reach the venerable realm so many times. Why do they have to try again? Can't we continue tomorrow?" Hong Zhu frowned and objected in a very harsh tone. Hong Zhu was already in a very bad mood. Because she hadn't found enough women with spiritual qi to participate in the sacrificial ceremony, she had hurriedly returned from the secular world to the Hong clan. Apart from being scolded by the Hong clan's patriarch, she was also forced to rush to the venerable secret realm with a few other women to raise their cultivation. Fortunately, the location of the Hong family was very close to the pier of the venerable realm. Thus, Hong Zhu and the others were able to arrive at the scene just before the entrance to the venerable realm was about to close, pay the spirit jades, and enter the venerable realm. After little Miss Xing met up with elder son, they saw several figures at the transportation point before they left. It was Hong Zhu's group, the last group before the entrance to the secret realm closed. In fact, Hong Zhu was also very clear that since old Patriarch Hong had ordered her to break through to the venerable realm, he definitely intended for her to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. Naturally, she was unwilling from the bottom of her heart, but she could not resist the enraged old Master Hong. She could only obediently follow Shen Jingxian, Hong Yan, and Xiaofan into the mystic realm. Originally, Hong Zhu had secretly planned to delay for a period of time. Once he had broken through to the martial venerable realm, he would look for an opportunity to escape and hide in the secular world. She hadn't expected Song Qingshu to keep urging her. An inexplicable anger burned in her heart, and she didn't speak as politely as before. "Big sister, don't complain. In any case, we're already here, so let's hurry up and give it another try. Who knows, we might be able to successfully break through to the venerable realm next time." Hong Yan didn't object and gently persuaded her. Hong Yan was obedient, and she had always been very obedient to the orders of her family. At this moment, she was also hoping that she could quickly raise her cultivation and contribute her meager strength to the family. Hong Yan, why do I feel that you're a little biased towards Song Qingshu? Could it be that the two of you are secretly having an affair? Hong Zhu glanced at Hong Yan and suddenly chuckled. You? What nonsense are you talking about? Song Qingshu and I are innocent, and I've already sworn to never marry in my life. Don't you know about this? Hong Yan had always been a reserved and obedient girl, so how could she withstand Hong Yan's teasing? Her face instantly flushed red. I don't know about that. Recently, I've noticed that the two of you are often in the same boat, and even your tones are similar. I thought that the two of you were secretly together. Hong Zhu's expression didn't change, and she continued to speak with a smile, but anyone could see that she was impatient. Hong Zhu, you've misunderstood. There really is nothing between me and Hong Yan. It's just that we have the same goal. Song Qingshu's throat was dry as she tried her best to explain. Alright, enough with the pleasantries. Hong Zhu interrupted Song Qingshu with a wave of her hand, and playfully shrugged. She found a place to sit down, yawned, and said, My sister has a lot of ideas, and it's her freedom to be with whoever she wants. In any case, I can't do anything about it. I'm going to rest now, and we'll talk about cultivation tomorrow. You. Hong Yan stomped her feet in frustration at Hong Zhu's sarcastic words. Looking at Hong Zhu's lazy expression, Hong Yan knew that there was no way she could convince Hong Zhu to continue cultivating today, so she simply turned her face away, pouted her lips and sulked. Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei both felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward. They wanted to step forward and be the peacemaker, but they felt that this was the Hong family's matter, and it wasn't appropriate for them to get involved. Thus, in the end, they could only look at each other and smile bitterly, and silently waited at the side. As for third young Master Hong, he was even more helpless. Song Qingshu hadn't even finished speaking when she was interrupted. Was she supposed to go up and provoke them? After all, this was a fight between women, and as a man, it wasn't appropriate for him to intervene. It was better to wait for them to slowly calm down. Little Hong Zhu, Goddess Shen, since the two of you want to break through to the martial supremacy realm so badly, why don't you let me come up with an idea? Just as the atmosphere in the seclusion area became extremely stagnant, and everyone was silent as they prepared to rest, a voice suddenly came from the nearby forest. As soon as the voice finished, a figure slowly walked out of the fog. Who is it? Song Qingshu's body tensed up, and she immediately circulated her mental cultivation method. She vigilantly looked at the blurry figure in the distance, and secretly blamed herself for being too careless. She was so focused on discussing the breakthrough method with Hong Zhu and the others that she even forgot to spread out her divine sense. Third young Master Hong quickly stood up as well. His body trembled, and he displayed the strength of a peak fourth-level martial supremacy. His eyes were like two sharp swords that had been unsheathed as he stared at the newcomer. His entire body was slightly arched, like a ferocious tiger that was ready to attack at any time. The few absent-minded women in the seclusion area were slightly stunned, and their gazes also turned to the figure walking over from the distance. Shen Jingxian and Hong Zhu were a little puzzled. This person's voice sounded very familiar. Could it be someone they knew? Especially Shen Jingxian. She didn't know why, but at this moment, her heart suddenly started pounding. She stared unblinkingly at the figure, and her delicate fists were tightly clenched. She looked extremely nervous, but she was completely unaware of it. Chapter 12:23. Shen Jingxian only saw his face clearly when the person walked out of the fog. She was stunned. Xiao Chen. This person was actually the Xiao Chen that she had been yearning for day and night. How was this possible? Why was Xiao Chen in the Venerable Realm? Didn't Hong Zhu say that he had been captured by the people from the inner martial arts world? Could it be that the Hong family's information was wrong? Was he here to look for her? How did he know that she was here? Countless questions emerged in Shen Jingshuan's mind. She wanted to take a step forward and immediately run towards Xiaochen, but her feet seemed to have grown roots in the ground. She could only stand there and watch as Xiaochen walked closer and closer. The other women also found it hard to believe. Hongzhu even subconsciously rubbed his eyes and pinched his cheeks hard, only to find that it actually hurt. It seemed that he was not dreaming. The person in front of him was indeed Xiaochen. "Boy, stop right there. Don't go near this seclusion point again, or I won't be polite." Song Qingshu stared coldly at Xiaochen. In a flash, he blocked the seclusion point and stretched out his hand to make a gesture to stop him. For some reason, when Song Qingshu looked at the man in front of her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disgust. "Hello, Goddess Shen, little Hongzhu, CFA, Hong Yan, long time no see. Did you all miss me?" Xiaochen directly ignored Song Qingshu's warning and continued to walk towards the seclusion point unhurriedly. He even smiled and waved at the women. However, although he did not show it on the surface, Xiaochen's heart was somewhat solemn. He could clearly feel that Song Qingshu's cultivation state indicated that he was a cultivator. Even the red-clothed third young master Hong was also a cultivator. It seemed that the inner martial arts world was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Apart from the number one sect of the demon sect, Awakening Heaven sect, there was actually such a high-level cultivator. Moreover, from the contents of their conversation, Xiaochen could tell that they belonged to two different families, the Song family and the Hong family. It seemed that this cultivator clan was quite large. Xiaochen, is that really you? Could it be that I've cultivated too much and am hallucinating?" Shen Jingxian blinked her big eyes and stared blankly at Xiaochen. She was so excited that her heart was like a tsunami. She murmured to herself, "Of course, the real Xiaochen is here." Xiaochen smiled slightly and stared at Shen Jingshuan's gentle and beautiful face. He continued to say, "If you don't believe me, I can also give you some examples to prove it. For example, we met a big shark when we went out to sea in Songning City. For example, you and I sat in Bay's Panamera and raced together. For example, I helped you settle the few good-for-nothings from the Shen family, and then we," as Xiaochen spoke with great familiarity, beautiful memories of himself and Shen Jingxian emerged in his mind. His heart was in turmoil. He looked at Shen Jingxian, whom he had not seen for a whole year, and his throat was a little choked. Before Xiaochen could finish speaking, Shen Jingshuan's eyes became moist. Her motionless body, which seemed to have been immobilized, suddenly regained the ability to move. She immediately jumped out of the seclusion area and flew over. She threw herself into Xiaochen's arms like a swallow returning to its nest. Xiaochen hugged Shen Jingxian tightly in his arms. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He could feel Shen Jingxian trembling in his arms. Not long after, a large patch of his shirt became wet. Xiaochen was filled with emotions as he stroked Shen Jingshuan's hair. He had imagined countless scenes of reuniting with his goddess, but he never expected to meet her unexpectedly in the venerable realm. Perhaps it was not an accident. If not for that trace of familiarity that made him chase after her, the two of them might have missed each other again. After crying silently for a while, Shen Jingxian finally calmed down a little. She raised her head to look at Xiaochen, her arms still tightly hugging him. She said in a low voice, "Xiaochen, where have you been for the past year? Why didn't you give me a call? You shouldn't have done that. Do you know that?" Xiaochen, who was immersed in the emotions of reuniting with her, nearly laughed out loud. Goddess Shen was still the same. She loved to educate him no matter what, but she also made him feel like he was bathing in a spring breeze. Gently wiping away the tears on Shen Jingshuan's face, Xiaochen explained helplessly, I ran into some trouble, didn't I? I tried calling you a few times after you went to cultivate with Hongzhu, but you weren't in the service area, so there was nothing I could do. Xiaofan felt a little jealous when she saw Xiao Chen and Shen Jingxian tightly hugging each other. She was also very excited to see Xiao Chen and very much wanted to immediately bury herself in Xiao Chen's arms to experience the feeling of being loved. However, the current situation clearly did not allow her to do so, so she could only stand there and watch silently. Hong Zhu pulled Song Qingshu to the side and briefly explained Xiao Chen's identity to Song Qingshu and third young master Hong so that they would not misunderstand him further. It would not be good if they attacked him and made a mistake. However, Hong Yan, who was standing behind Xiaofan, had a look of disdain on her face. She even turned her gaze to the side and ignored the touching scene in front of her. She did not have a good impression of Xiao Chen to begin with. She had always thought that he was a shameless lecher, so she turned a deaf ear to Xiao Chen's greeting. Shen Jingxian wiped her face and smiled through her tears. Right, the sect I went to cultivate was indeed in a rather remote location in the outer martial world, so the signal on my phone wasn't very good. I couldn't receive calls from the secular world at all. It looks like I've wronged you. I'm sorry. Is there a need for apologies between us? Xiao Chen looked at Shen Jingxian, who was always so warm and amiable, with a face full of pity. Shen Jingxian looked into Xiao Chen's eyes and a sweet smile appeared on her face. She asked softly, "Why did you come here?" Hong Zhu previously told me that you were captured by people from the inner martial world. I was worried about you for a long time. It's great to see that you're fine now. In fact, Shen Jingxian had always been a rather reserved person. She usually hid her worries and would not reveal them at all. However, at this moment, when she saw Xiao Chen, whom she had been thinking about day and night, her suppressed emotions suddenly erupted. She did not care that there were other people watching from the side. She just wanted to hold Xiao Chen like this forever and talk to him quietly. It's a long story, but the situation is special now. I'll help you break through to the martial supremacy stage first. Once you're done, we can slowly talk in detail. Xiao Chen naturally understood Shen Jingxian's impulsiveness and dependence, but he did not want to continue showing off their affection in front of everyone. Thus, he gently said to Shen Jingxian, "You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."